More phone calls from the lost and found of free speech.
Outrageous opinion and controversial comment with the dual voltage dream team. The Michaels, Graham and Parry. He's back, is he?
Through the night until dawn's early light.
The two Mikes, Parry and Graham on Talk Sport.
It is so brilliant, you won't believe it. It's so simple. It smacked me in the face this afternoon.
Okay, tell us then.
I'm going to buy a bus. Nobody's ever seen a white rhino, so it doesn't matter.
Well, people have seen them.
No, nobody's ever seen, like, a dinosaur, but we still, revere dinosaurs, so we'd still revere the white rhino, even if there weren't any white rhinos, so it doesn't really matter if the white rhino dies. I've never had an egg, and I've never had a kebab. I never will.
You eat cake, don't you?
Sometimes. A little lemon drizzle.
Yeah, it's got egg in it.
Well, it's simulated egg.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. I'm Mike Graham. He's Mike Parry. And, of course, we know that Mr. Parry's been a great supporter of women's football for more than 20 years. A very good morning to you, Mr. Parry, on this particularly historic night.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. It is indeed. And aren't we lucky to just start our show just as the second half has started this historic game, which I believe is going to end in England glory. I have no doubt about it whatsoever. To have held the Japanese to 1-1 by half-time, when Japanese are, of course, the greatest team in the world in women's football terms and the holders of the trophy, is a remarkable feat. I don't see how England can possibly fail now. The momentum is with them, the spirit, the courage, the adventure, it's all with them. And I believe it's going to end in ultimate glory in this game and go forward to the final on Sunday.
Well, we're going to keep you updated. Warren Horton's watching
are.
the game for us, of course. We're watching the game here. It will be incredible, actually, if England get to a World Cup final for the first time since 1966.
Oh, you've worked that out, have you?
Remarkable, isn't it?
Wow.
Well, I have worked it out. Well, I mean, after your performance last night, you said you were going to come in and bring your glasses because you were having trouble making out who was playing on which side. So I noticed you're not wearing your glasses, so I presume you've got some other form of vision going on.
No, I've got my trifocals.
Oh, you've got your trifocals?
Yeah.
So, very good, okay.
So I can look down at the desk 1 minute, taking all the electronic information coming across my screen. What did I say?
Your screen.
Screen. And then project my vision just a few feet further to one of our internal electronic monitors, which is, in fact, portraying the way things are going over in Canada.
Indeed. Tell us what you made of the first half.
What I make of the first half? I made of the first half the fact that England rattled the Japanese right from the start. They got stuck in. It was all momentum. It was all energy. It was a very, very fast-paced game. And I keep saying this, I think England women are better at using what I consider to be measured, if not long, passes than the men. Because the problem is, in men's football these days, too many people have taken the Arsene Wenger route. Play it in triangles. Play it pretty. Play it left, right, forward.
Keep
left,
hold
right,
of possession
left, right,
at all
forward,
times.
Left, right, forward. And then make some ground, but so slowly. The England women are not interested in making ground slowly. They're interested only in making ground at rapid speed. And in the box, in the area, I like the fact that they are dramatically combative with their opponents, the Japanese.
What did you think of the two penalties?
What did I think of the two penalties? Yeah. I thought they were actually both justified. Did you? In the end, I think they were both justified. I think that worked out. I think on the balance of scales of probability, England's was more award-worthy than the Japanese penalty.
Award-worthy
than the Japanese penalty. However, on the balance of probability of possession within the game, I'd say it's worked out even Stevens to the two teams.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating 45 minutes.
It certainly is.
It may even go on longer than that, of course, because we may end up going into extra time.
Could go on longer, and that doesn't matter because we're with you for the next 3 hours at least, and we're going to pick up every detail of this game on this historic night. Ooh.
Absolutely right. Now, before we continue,
sorry, I was just showing some emotion there towards a move in which our England goalkeeper got down and literally seized the ball from the
smothered the ball
of the Japanese forward.
Now, what we ought to talk about as well as the game is going on is that this was, in fact, or yesterday was, in fact, the hottest day in July.
Sure, don't remind me.
On record.
Don't remind me.
Since records have begun.
I haven't slept for 36 hours.
How did you manage to get through the day?
I haven't slept for 36 hours.
You haven't?
No, I can't sleep. It's impossible. Honestly, I'm not joking. All my nerve fibre endings are like warm. And
your nerve fibre endings?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a good sign if you haven't slept for 36 hours.
No, it's not a good sign.
You'll start going doolally in about an hour and a half then.
Well, I'm not going doolally, but I literally, I've got a throbbing headache, I've got a bit of blurred vision, I feel languid. I feel also that I'm carrying too much weight because I've been trying to keep my fluidity situation.
So you've been drinking a lot?
Well, only things like orange squash and stuff like that. I haven't had any alcohol.
What about the cherryade?
No, I've given up on the cherryade because of the amount of bubbles in it. And this sort of weather, if you start drinking stuff with bubbles in it, you get bloatation, and it can cause you real problems, that kind of stuff. No, what I'm drinking is literally, I was in a Morrison supermarket today, and they were selling bottles of orange squash and summer fruit squash.
Summer fruit squash?
Summer fruit squash, and that stuff they use at Wimbledon, the lemon squash.
Barley water.
Barley water, that's it.
Yeah.
If you bought 3, it was £1 a bottle, so I bought all 3.
So you're on another bargain hunt in that same supermarket.
Yeah, definitely. But they've all nearly gone now. They've all nearly gone. I'm not joking. I've had to really keep up my fluidity levels all day long because you see the problem is that with my constitution, with my body, with my metabolism, which I have. Bearing in mind that only 1/3 of my heart works, so it can't beat as fast as your heart to actually... Because you've got to remember...
Does it start beating faster when you get hotter, though?
Well, no, you see, I was about to say to you, you have to understand, when a human body gets too hot, it has to fight back and keep itself cool.
Right.
Now, that means the heart's got an awful lot more work to do. The main functions of the heart are A, to pump blood around your body, B, to deal with the digestive tract so that when you ingest food it goes to the right parts of your body to give you strength, and C, to maintain body temperature, okay? Now, you can't maintain body temperature if you're out in temperatures of sort of 97 degrees without the heart working very, very hard.
It was very hot
out
there.
So needless to say, I have been completely knackered over the last 36 hours by this very hot weather because anybody with a normal heart trying to battle against the extreme heat would have a problem. When you are as mortifyingly crippled in the heart region as I am, it is very difficult indeed.
I'm starting to regret asking you the question. I just asked you how you managed to deal with the heat because lots of people were trying to deal with the heat in very many different ways.
I was pouring. I literally got out on the old roof terrace. I got hold of a watering can that I was going to use to water the plants, because you have to water those every day now.
Right.
But I was so hot and frustrated, I watered my head myself instead.
Just poured water over yourself?
Literally all over my head and shoulders.
Why didn't you go and find some nice kind of cool air-conditioned library or something and go and sit in there?
Well, I don't know why you'd do that. What a ridiculous waste of time. I've been in and out the shower 3 times today, just to try and keep the old bonds cool and all that kind of stuff, But I tell you what, pouring the watering can over me was lovely. It was really, what was the word? Liberating. I felt almost like I was a tree. You know what I mean?
Almost like you were a tree?
Well, if you saw
what happens when you haven't slept for 36 hours. You start imagining you might be a tree.
Yeah, maybe I'm suffering from, what's the word? Delusions?
Delusions,
what's the other word? When you're deprived of sleep, you get what you get.
Hallucinations?
Hallucinations, that's right, hallucinations, that kind of stuff. It could well be.
It could.
I don't know. But, I mean, it is a very difficult situation for somebody in my position, but I'm not moaning about it. I don't want to moan about it. I don't want people to say, poor old Porky there with his 1/3 of his heart battling against the hottest day ever. And funny enough, believe it or not.
It's not going to get any cooler, is it, tomorrow?
Is it not going to get cooler?
I don't think so, no.
Funny enough, I come in tonight and, you check your emails and all this kind of stuff. So I've got my information device out, check my emails, and guess what the last one to come in says?
What does it say?
Well, quite unbelievably, prepaid funerals. Arranging your funerals now will help save your family worry and money.
Why have they sent one to you?
I don't know.
What do they know?
I really don't know. I'm trying to work that out, but this image is here, arranging for your funeral.
You've still got some noises coming out of your information.
I know, it just came out of the blue. Oh, it says here, plan for later life, prepaying funeral costs now means one less thing for your loved ones to worry about. I'm dancing from side to side on my information device. Worry about when the time comes. Get a quote now. You may only have to pay as little as £5.40 a week.
That might be one of those spam emails, though, so I wouldn't open it if I were you. Oh, you already have opened it?
Yeah, and a will is included in every plan. And what I find is absolutely bizarre is that there's some artwork on this, right, which shows all the family, like your children and their children and kids, all laughing and smiling because you're dying.
Yeah, great, isn't it?
I mean...
And, of course, they must have sent it to you by mistake because that wouldn't be the picture at your funeral, would it? Because there wouldn't be any kids laughing at all. There wouldn't be any kids there,
I don't think anybody would be laughing, to be honest. But it says in 20 years' time, the average cost of a funeral could be over £14,000.
Really?
14,000. I mean, that is a scare tactic.
You don't think you're going to be around in 20 years' time, though, do you?
No way wotherwver.
Yeah.
This rate, I'll be lucky to be alive in 20 hours' time.
Well, maybe they've heard about all this
days.
Talk of yours about mortuaries and about, hearses and about funerals in general and about death.
It goes on to say a growing number of families will struggle with funeral bills, and then it says the average cost of a basic funeral has risen by 88% in the last 10 years. Well, shouldn't we do something about the funeral industry then? If it's costing that much more, 88% in 10 years, I think there should be an inquiry into the funeral industry.
I think
people
you may
can't
well be
afford
right.
to bury their loved ones. What sort of a country are we?
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The pressure's on now.
Relieve the itch. Talk sport.
What people have been saying on Twitter about the Porky jinx might not actually come true, because a lot of people were very worried that since you tipped the Lionesses to win, it might all go horribly wrong. But,
no. I tipped America to win last night, and they did. So,
you did?
You know, I know a lot about women's football. I've been watching it for 20 years, and that one that just rattled the bar there, that was a Zinedine Zidane, that was. The girl bent over to a 45-degree angle, whoosh, you know, a knife, her leg came in like a knife, hacking away at a joint of meat, and whoosh, off the ball went. Now, listen, we've got to offer some advice to our listeners about this hot weather, because people are going to die in this hot weather, and I'm not saying that flippantly. It will happen.
Well, it is
will
incredibly hot, particularly in the cities.
Impossible to breathe. The air is so thin when it's as hot as this, and so distressing to a lot of people that it's going to be a problem. But there's a lot of ways you can do it. There are ways you can do it by handy tips around the house, OK, and I've been researching the internet all day to find out what they are. Like, for instance, taking the cover off my duvet and sticking it in the freezer for while I'm out tonight.
Well, you'd have to have a very big freezer to do that, wouldn't you?
No, you wouldn't, no.
So if you haven't got one of those little box freezers, you couldn't do that at all, could you?
No, you'd have to have a proper freezer cabinet, obviously.
What if you just put it in the fridge? Does the fridge do the trick?
No, put it in the freezer. Put it in the freezer. I mean, I don't mean the whole duvet. I mean, you take the duvet cover off.
Yeah, no, I know that, but the cover is still quite big once you've kind of folded it down.
Once you fold it up, it's about the size of a shoebox, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you stick that in one of your freezer
And what happens when you
compartments.
take it out? Isn't it like sort of frozen solid?
No, it's not. No. I've tried it before. It's very cold for obvious reasons. It's been in the freezer, but it's not frozen solid. Wow, what a save that was.
Wouldn't you be better off?
There's a save there.
Wouldn't you be better off actually?
Oh, Japanese goalkeeper girl. Fantastic.
Japanese goalkeeper girl. I can see that you've been brushing up on the on the women's football commentary front.
Well, I just don't like to get the pronunciations wrong, but the Japanese goalkeeper lady is Ms. Kaihori.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, say very well.
So what are you going to do when you get back later on? You're going to take your duvet cover out of the freezer.
Yes.
You're going to then try and put it back on the duvet.
No, because I don't want a duvet. Just use the cover.
You just use the cover.
But you have to use cover, you see, because if you just lie in the bed and all that, you have to understand that you can't just go to sleep because the human body needs to respond against something. Do you understand what I mean?
No, I don't. I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, in this sort of weather, because it's so hot, because the atmosphere is so hot, you don't get any cooler by lying there on the bed. So that's why if you put a cover over you, you are actually containing what little cold air you can summon around you. Do you see what I mean?
So you're saying you should put a cover over yourself then?
Definitely.
Right, well
Absolutely.
That would make people hotter though, wouldn't it?
No, it won't. No, not if it's been in the freezer.
I think a much better idea is just to go to a place where somehow there is some kind of air conditioning, so you can, just cool down inside a building where you don't feel the heat. Surely
but if you want to go to sleep, you can hardly say, "Oh, I think I'll go to the local library," and then just say, "Oh, do you mind if I just sort of kip down the floor there for 6 hours?"
Well, you could probably have a little nap in the library. Nobody would notice.
You'd be like a refugee. Yeah, well, I'm not into that. I'm sorry. I'd probably get mugged or something by somebody in a library, so I've decided not to. Now, there are other things that you should do, which sound extraordinary, but it's actually true. For instance, you should be eating the hottest curry you can possibly...
Yes, because that makes you sweat, right?
Yeah,
and that's a good thing.
That's right, yeah.
OK.
Curry, unexpected cooler during a heat wave, especially one made with light, easily digestible proteins, such as chicken or fish, OK?
Right.
A plate of vindaloo may be the last thing you fancy, but curry powder itself contains caspasian, which is a heat compound found in chili peppers, which stimulates sweat production.
Caspasian, how do you spell that?
You spell that Capsaicin. Capsaicin.
Capsaicin.
Capsaicin. That's what I said.
So get yourself some of that from your local supermarket.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
This all sounds pretty complicated.
No, it's not complicated at all. Now, you know the other thing you should do?
Go on.
And you should do this now. You should start doing it now. You lick your wrists.
Why?
In heat, you lick your wrists, and it's a trick we found from, once again, the monkey world, by examining the way monkeys do it.
Well, if you run your wrists underneath a cold tap, that's good as well, because it's one of the pulse points.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
your
exactly...
wrists, the top of your arms, that kind of thing, but you want to lick them, though.
No, when you're lying in bed, you can't run them under a tap, so what you do is you keep licking your wrists, and what it does is it temporarily reduces the blood flow to the area that most affects your body and causes overheating, OK? And also, you can, if you want, put them under cold taps. You could even have a bowl of water next to your bed.
You could have a bucket of cold water. You could. Bucket of iced water.
Yes,
perhaps.
you could. And keep sticking your wrists into it. Okay, that's a really good one, right?
Are you suggesting people do this like if they're lying in bed at the moment and they're having trouble sleeping, and this would be a way for them to
definitely
get themselves off to sleep?
Get out of bed, go and get a bucket, and if you haven't got a bucket, then use a watering can from the garden or the roof terrace, as I have, and fill it full of coldish water. Although water doesn't come out the tap very cold at the moment, and dip your wrists into it. Every time you sort of wake up, and you will go back to sleep again. Now, another one that I'm using, right, and I found this out because I've suffered from heat problem and what's heat problem? What's heat?
Heat stroke.
Heat stroke. That's all. I've suffered from this for years.
Heat stroke is very serious, though.
Oh, it is very serious, yeah. And I have to wear a hat in this sort of weather and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you will find yourself in problems. But I scoured the drug shelves at I think it was Boots, actually, or it could have been another one, like the drugstore or something like that. And I found this...
Seems like you spent an awful lot of time wandering around the shops this afternoon.
Well, shops are cool as well.
That's what I'm saying. If you do that...
Going into supermarkets, go around the produce shelves, and it's very cool there. But I found this thing called Black Cohosh.
Black Cohosh?
Black Cohosh, and it's made by Native Americans.
Is it?
They've had it for 200 years, and it is clinically proven to relieve... sort of night sweats and that kind of stuff, OK?
What sort of form does it come in? Is it a pill?
It's a herbal supplement, so it comes in a bottle.
Oh, OK, so you drink it?
Yeah, you can drink it, yeah. And the reason it's so good is it works on a part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which is right in the middle of your bons, right in the middle of your brain, right? And do you drink it like on its own? Do you put it into something? Do you take a spoonful of it? Take a spoonful of it.
Okay.
Oh, no, actually, I've just remembered now. Sorry, the ones I've got, it's in packet form.
Packet form?
Yeah, 30 tablets, I think it was. Yeah, 30 tablets, yeah. And it is designed to head straight for the hypothalamus, because the hypothalamus is literally the body's, what do you call it?
I don't know.
Temperature regulator. What do you call that?
Thermostat,
that's right. It is literally the body's thermostat, OK? And actually, I've got it written down here because I've got it on my notepad. I bought a packet of 30 tablets. They cost £9.89.
And how many of them did you take?
I've taken 6 so far.
It's supposed to be recommended for women in particular who are suffering from the menopause because it helps them to cool down as well.
Oh, really?
Are you sure you've got the right thing here?
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah. It's got great cooling properties. Don't worry, I've been taking it for years.
OK.
Also, you can get things in those shops like nettle tea and chamomile tea, OK? And that's good as well, OK?
All right.
Now, the other thing is, people go around opening all their windows when it's hot. Well, you shouldn't do that. You should keep them closed.
Well, what I noticed tonight, actually, before I came in, was there was a cool breeze was starting to kind of circulate through, which hadn't happened throughout the course of the day. But if you shut the curtains, for example, that's not good either, because that keeps all the hot air in, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. You're absolutely right. And you throw all the windows wide open, and you think, oh, that's great. You get a slight sort of breeze. But the thing is, it's hotter... outside than it is inside, and all you're doing by opening all the windows is letting hot air into your house.
Well, doesn't that depend on how your house is kind of situated, though? Because if your house is situated and the sun's shining right in, you close the curtains to make sure the sun doesn't actually heat the place up. So that's
what you do.
Cool. But some places are actually hotter inside than they are outside.
No, but you're absolutely right in what you've said. What you do is you close all the windows, right?
Yeah.
And then you draw all the curtains. And that means that there's no sunshine coming in through your windows, because your windows are magnifying glasses.
Yeah, but you don't want to completely close out any kind of air coming in and out, because otherwise there's no movement of air and it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter.
No, I don't agree. The warm air, right, which rises to escape through the the top of the windows. You can, if you've got sliding windows that go up and down, you open a little bit at the top, okay? Because hot air rises in your house and it rises towards the ceiling.
The other thing you can do, and I did this earlier on today, actually, was just get in the car, and I had to go somewhere anyway, but get in the car with the air conditioning, and you actually feel an awful lot better once you've even been in the car for 5 or 10 minutes.
I drove around in the car today for 10 minutes.
That might not be particularly ecologically sound, but that's the only place you can be cool.
I drove around in the car today for about 10 or 15 minutes because it was incredibly nice and cool, and the coolest place I've been all day in my car, without a shadow of a doubt.
Because all of this sounds very complicated. I mean, people are going to be trying to take notes down and going, so I have to buy these pills, I have to get a bucket of water, I have to drink nettle tea, I have to worry about, the thermostat in my head.
Putting your sheet in the freezer.
I have to close every single curtain in the house. I have to put my...
Licking your wrists.
Licking your wrists. It's too much to remember.
No, it's not. And the other thing you can do, and I got this again from like an old wives' tale, if you do open a window, get a wet sheet that you've put into the sink and rinse it out till it's almost dry, but not, and it's wet.
So it's not dripping wet.
That's right, and nail it up over the window. And then what I'll do is the air that comes in then will pick up the wet particles and...
Nail it up?
Yeah, nail it. Yeah, nail it above the window. Yeah.
That sounds very dangerous to me.
No, it's not. It's not dangerous at all. How much... Look, a nail doesn't damage your wall.
Yeah, but you have to get up on a ladder to nail something up above the window, and you might fall out the window.
No, most people of average height can nail a sheet up above the window without standing on anything.
Are you sure?
Well, you can stand on a chair. But the thing is, people say, oh, that'll ruin my walls. No, it won't. A nail hole is less than 1/4 of an inch across.
I'd love to see the state of your place after all of these things you're supposed to have done to it.
You can also create artificial reflectors by putting silver paper in your windows so that actually the sunshine that's trying to get in your window, you just bounce it away again.
OK, well, it sounds very complicated. I think it's way too complicated. And we're out of time now anyway, so look into the light for a moment, because we're going to be talking about time a little bit later on, because you may not know this, but there's been some time added on to the atomic clock.
1 second.
Well, we're going to be talking to an expert about that, and he'll be telling us exactly why we've had to do this. But we're going to be updating you on the Japan-England game. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. Got a few tweets to read out to you, Mr. Parry. Heddy says this, capsicum, which I think was the pepper sort of powder you were trying to describe earlier, as measured by the Scoville scale for peppers. That's from Dr. John in Leeds. And he says,
thank you, Doc.
Windows are not magnifiers. They prevent the escape of infrared radiation, which is why glass houses become hot. And John says, open your loft hatch and the hot air escapes through it. And here's one from a Liverpool fan who says, in Roman times, in hot weather, get up 6 in the morning, let in fresh air, close the curtains, and that's how they air conditioned. Fact.
Is that right?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
That's what he says.
Fact, like Rafa's facts.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Facts on Merseyside. That's good. Well, I appreciate all that, and thank you very much indeed. Have you got any more tips to keep cool? Because all jokes aside, I said to you, people are going to die. I mean, we're looking at tomorrow morning's papers now. If you just come in, it's already saying people are dying, and particularly old people, gasping for breath in this sort of heat and all that kind of stuff. It's very serious, really.
It is very serious.
And the only people in this country who are indifferent to it seems to me to be the players at Wimbledon. Because whenever I've heard them interviewed all day today, they've said, no, it's not that bad, because they used to playing in Melbourne. And they used to playing in sort of Barcelona, and they used to playing in South America, some of them.
And also they're very, very highly toned athletes.
Yeah, exactly,
and they're used to playing their sport in very, very hot conditions. So I would imagine if you're in the crowd at Wimbledon, it's actually more uncomfortable than if you're actually playing. I
heard a tennis player today saying that, I think it was Melbourne he was talking about, or it could have been South America, Mexico or something like that. Sorry, that's Central America.
That is Central America.
And he said first of all, grass is not as hot as tarmac,
or clay.
Or clay, that's right. Where he said you can feel... He said the reason you run around so fast when you play on those sort of courts is you can feel the heat burning through the soles of your shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you have to keep your feet off the ground. It's a bit like Simon and Smith and his Amazing Dancing Bear. Don't keep your feet on the ground because you burn your feet.
Simon Smith and his Amazing Dancing Bear?
Oh, that was a fantastic hit pop song in the 60s.
Oh, was it?
And it was written by the guy who was a member of the Animals, the organ player in the Animals. What was his name?
Well, Alan Price.
Alan Price, that's right, yeah. I know all the lines in it. Who would have thought a man and bear could be well accepted anywhere? It's Simon Smith.
How do you remember the words to all these ancient songs?
Dancing Bear.
This is as a result of having had no sleep and taking those strange tablets. But I'll tell you what I found quite surprising, because I did have to go into town earlier on today, which I kind of was really dreading, because I thought getting on the tube is going to be an absolute nightmare. But they've actually started air conditioning bits of the tube, and then I found myself walking around sort of Covent Garden, and actually I'm rather enjoying it. It was a bit like it was a bit like being on holiday. I had shorts on, had a short sleeve shirt, and I was actually thinking to myself, if this was what we had every single summer, I'd rather like it.
I can't stand this seat. You know, some colleagues of ours now work out in sort of places like Abu Dhabi and Dubai and all that kind of stuff, because the world is global in terms of sport now and all that. I just don't know how they do it.
Well,
I just could not stand it.
But most of what they do is inside, and most of what they do is air conditioned.
They've still got to get from building to building. They've still got to get from the house into the car. They've still got to walk the streets if they, like want to go shopping or something like that.
Probably not, though.
Well, they're all big shopping malls. I know,
all the shops
kind of stuff.
are indoors. You don't have to, you're not walking around on a high street.
Yeah, but the thing is, they sometimes send us pictures saying, oh, look, spend the day on the beach or, lazing by the swimming pool or something. Well, that's outdoors, and that would drive me bonkers, I'm telling you. I'm just not a sun person whatsoever.
But if you were in this temperature, I mean, this was the temperature it was when I was in Turkey last year, and it was absolutely beautiful because you just basically went from the swimming pool to the sea to the bar to the restaurant, and it was great.
There's a big difference between being in a pair of swimming shorts under a parasol on a beach with a cooling sea just a few feet away, which makes you feel cool anyway. True. And wearing what we call working clothes, walking around central London. Yeah, there's a huge difference. And getting onto tubes. I mean, I've got to go to Newcastle on Friday.
Right.
On a train for 3 hours.
Well, the train will be air-conditioned, won't it?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. But you know what happens in this country? The air conditioning worked up to about sort of 80 degrees or something. Yeah. If it goes over that, it seems to just pack up everywhere.
Well, are you sure the train's actually going to be running, given that there was that story yesterday about the rails being warped by the heat?
I'm not sure about that. I've told you about that.
You might have to drive. You maybe should drive up there.
I'm not driving up to Newcastle. You're mad. I mean, I could drop dead at the wheel of the car.
Well, you could, but not if you've got air conditioning. It could be a good way to go.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I don't believe in all this nonsense about rails buckling. How many trains have you seen that have been derailed by buckled rails?
Well, they weren't being derailed, but they weren't actually running properly.
I told you the other night the reason the rails don't buckle is because there's gaps are built into them when they're constructed to make sure that if you do get excessive temperatures, the expansion of the metal. The linear coefficient of metal.
Yeah, but we had people also
is 4 over 8.
Yeah, but you said
minus
that, you said that they didn't actually they didn't actually contract.
No, they don't contract,
and they do contract. So you got that bit wrong.
No, they don't contract.
Have you bought the ticket already? By the way, have you bought the ticket already?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
How much does that cost you?
That's going to be £250.
First class, of course.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course it is. Because I mean, it's particularly if it's a hot day, you want to be sort of scrunched up in a seat with a full carriage.
With the rest of the hoi polloi.
No, not at all. But in a full carriage, I have work to do.
Of the people.
I've got work to do. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're going straight from here then on Friday morning?
No, it's a bit later on. I'll probably go to Savoy for a bit of breakfast and then go to the station. You know what I mean?
And you're going to stay the night up there?
No, I'm coming back that night because I've got things to do on Saturday. What are you doing Saturday this weekend, by the way?
Saturday, actually, we went to a party on Saturday. That was part of the reason I was in town earlier on today, because you might have seen my tweet.
Hang on. I don't remember us being invited to a party on Saturday.
No, you're not invited.
What do you mean I'm not invited?
Well, you're not invited. I've been invited to a party on Saturday. You don't get invited to everything that I go to, and neither do I get invited to everything you go to.
Hang on, we normally speaking, we do communicate about these things, particularly on weekend things. When I'm invited to a football match at a weekend, after our working week is finished, I don't just abandon you and leave you.
Well, you haven't always invited me, have you? You haven't always invited me.
I always invite you, and half the time you prevaricate, and then by the time you decide you want to go, the seat's gone. You just can't make your mind up. Whose party is it?
I can't tell you that.
What do you mean you can't tell me?
Well, it's kind of a secret party that nobody's allowed to know about.
Is it somebody who's famous?
Well, there would be some famous people there, so obviously we can't release,
Why are you being so secretive?
Well, because I've been asked to be secretive. And,
who by?
By the person who's having the party.
Well, hang on, excuse me. You owe your loyalties to me, to moi. Your working
colleague. Well, you wouldn't want to go to a party. But you wouldn't want to go.
Not somebody you see twice a year, probably.
Yeah, but there's a reason why you wouldn't want to go, right? First of all, you weren't invited, right? And I've only been invited on my own. Second of all, it's a fancy dress party. And you've said before very clearly that people who dress up as fancy dress and costumes and all that are weirdos. That was what your line was, I think.
I don't think I've ever said that.
Yes, you have.
I've said it's not my particular choice of style or dress to go to a party because I think people can, unfortunately make themselves look a bit silly. But I mean, that wouldn't stop me going to a party if you said it's all fancy dress.
Well, I'm afraid you won't be going because you haven't been invited. It's as simple as that,
what are you doing in town?
I was in town to get myself a fancy dress costume.
What have you got?
I've got, because it's a Great Gatsby theme, right? So I thought, well, I'll have to go.
Gatsby?
I'll have to go either in a kind of a dinner jacket, sort of white dinner jacket type thing. Then I thought, I might as well just hire a whole outfit. So I've got like a stripy blazer, I've got a straw boater, I've got a cravat.
That's not Great Gatsby.
Yeah,
that's Henry Royal Regatta.
Yeah, it is. No, it's kind of 20s.
No, the Great Gatsby
style.
is a white suit.
Well, it could be a white suit, but it's not just a white suit. You can wear, like, stripy blazers
Where is this party taking place?
I can't tell you that either.
No, but I mean, is it in a closed room, or is it in the grounds of somebody's house, or what?
Well, it's going to be in the grounds of somebody's house, yeah.
So that's why it's Great Gatsby and all this?
Well, I guess so. I didn't come up with the idea for the theme of the party. I'm just going along to it.
I can't understand why you're being, A, so secretive, B, so, what's the word I'm looking for? So insular about this, so selfish about it.
I'm not being selfish.
I know most people you know, and we've been in the same business all our lives. I can't believe that anybody...
How do you know it's not some kind of family thing? Could be a family thing. In which case you wouldn't be invited along anyway.
Well, I might be. A lot of your family like me, you know.
Some of them do, yeah. It's not all of them, though.
Yeah, well, you know, there's not many of them left now, is there?
That's true.
Crazy old father's gone.
Well, you see, that would be one of the reasons maybe you wouldn't get invited.
Well,
listen, it's one of those things. I mean, you get invited to things. You do things at the weekends that I don't get invited to. You have
only
your
with
family.
my family.
Yeah, right. But you haven't invited me to anything with your family for years.
No, I know I haven't, but I keep telling you when I go to football matches at the weekends, I don't usually forget you, and I'm feeling a little
Are you feeling like cut to the quick or something?
No.
Are you feeling like you're missing out on something?
No, I'm feeling that I might be the victim of an act of disloyalty.
Well, maybe it's possible that the person having the party does know you quite well and just doesn't want to have you there because you might be like a disruptive influence. I don't know, but
that's nice.
I haven't discussed it with
that's
nice.
Where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that theory from?
I'm just saying that could be the case. All I know is that you haven't been invited because if you had been, you would have got an invitation, and you haven't, right?
Well, hang on. This party's on Saturday, you say?
It is on Saturday.
And you went and got your outfit today?
Yes.
And when did you know about this party?
About a week or so ago.
Oh, well, that's obvious what's happened. It's obvious.
What's happened?
Well, what's happened is that whoever's party this is, they've had a huge long guest list, right? They've had several refusals, and they've looked for a couple of stumble bums to make up the numbers at short notice. You're an afterthought.
Is that right?
You're an afterthought.
Well, they haven't got quite as far down the list to you, though, have
You're
they?
just an afterthought.
That's why you haven't got one.
I tell you what, mate, I wouldn't go. If somebody said to me when I come to my party, oh, it's a big party, is it a particular sort of party? Is it an engagement or a wedding or anything?
I think it's a birthday party.
Well,
I don't want to give you any more details.
A significant number?
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you that.
Well, it sounds to me like it's a 50th or something like that.
I can't tell you that. I'm not going to give any more away.
Do you know what? You've been caught out there. If I were you, I'd have said, no, thanks very much indeed. I'm busy next weekend. Because it's fairly obvious they can't make up the numbers and they've just invited you because they can't find anybody else. That's obvious.
But they still haven't invited. But they still haven't invited you.
I wouldn't go.
Anyway, that's enough about the party. We're running out of time.
They know that I wouldn't accept an invitation on such squalid terms.
They're running out.
They know.
They're running out of time. You're running out of time.
It's obvious now. You haven't been invited. You're just an afterthought.
Look into the light
you
for a
are,
moment.
stumblebum.
Well, I'd rather be an afterthought than a no thought at all.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
Very, very early morning sports radio for postmen, trolley dollies,
out of a dirt chip, pressed wet,
and anyone who had to do a dawn runner after a very ill-advised one-night stand.
Go, go, go.
Over my dead body.
The two mics on Talk Sport.
It's Japan versus England. It's the World Cup semi-final. It's coming to very nearly the end of the regulation 90 minutes. Warren Horton's watching it for us. Warren, what's happening?
We're in stoppage time, as you said, Mike. 2 minutes left of stoppage time, and it's World Cup semi-final. And it's Japan 1, England 1. We can't separate these two sides at the moment. Both sides to score from their penalty spots. And Daniel Carter with me watching this game. If you look at the second half, England must feel that they should be in the final.
Definitely, they've had more chances, clearer chances as well. Japan haven't had a sniff at goal. Oh!
And as I said, oh, goodness me, is that an own goal?
Did it go in?
That is an own goal by Laura Bassett. That is absolute heartbreak for England, Mark Sampson's side. With 90 seconds left, the ball's crossed in from the right-hand side. And Laura Bassett, she's desperately trying to clear the ball and stop the ball going into the box. She's turned it into her own goal. Karen Barty, absolutely no chance. That is absolute heartbreak for England.
That is heartbreaking. That was definitely against the run of play. Laura Bassett just on the stretcher trying to clear it before the Japanese forward got in.
Yeah, just looking at this replay again, she's absolutely done the right thing. She's trying to intercept the ball because she knows that the Japanese striker's on there. And she just literally kicks the ball into her own net off the underside of the bar. England have got 30 seconds to respond here. It's Japan 2, England 1.
Lucky was that, Mr. Parry?
Well,
awful to watch that, isn't it?
Look,
90 seconds left.
I'm not going to contradict what the experts say about, as a defender did the right thing, but I'm not sure she did do the right thing, to be honest. I'm sorry. I mean, that was
She was trying to cut the ball out,
she was trying to
unfortunately, it kind of looped over the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean, that was a clumsy interception, I'm sorry to say, because it wasn't a pass back to the goalkeeper, because the goalkeeper tried a spectacular save to stop the ball going into her own net.
Right.
It wasn't a clearance over the bar, because it didn't clear the bar, it went in under the bar.
But the chances of that happening, though, must have been, 1,000 to 1.
Look, I hate to be critical of the girls who've done so well, and the game's over now, and it is utter heartbreak for the England girls on such a devastating mistake like that, but I'm afraid it was a mistake.
Well, as we were listening
it wasn't a bit of bad luck, it was a mistake, I'm sorry to have to say.
As we were listening to Warren and Danielle there, I mean, unfortunately, they were almost on the brink of going into extra time. England had been very much on top and seemingly in charge of the game in the second half, and absolutely, really devastating for them.
Look, you hate to be hate to say it, and I'm going to be probably the world's most unpopular man, but that wasn't...
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, would it?
It wasn't a simple error. I'm afraid she didn't get what she was trying to do right. Trying to cut out a ball into the middle to stop a Japanese forward leaping on it in the last minute. Interception, one thing, but to then bang it back to your own goalkeeper from range at speed.
I think she was just trying to get the ball out of the danger area, wasn't she? But she was at full stretch, and she was just. I think she was just unlucky. Surely.
Yeah. But as an observer, Mike, I have to say to you, to all intents and purposes, if you were, dumb and deaf and just watching that, you'd have thought, oh, that girl tried a shot on goal, because that's what it looked like from distance. It looked like a shot from 20 yards.
I mean, we've got lots and lots of emotion here on the pitches we're watching.
It's terrible.
I think it was just one of those very, very unlucky things that happens in a game of football. You can't possibly predict that would have happened if she tried that manoeuvre, 100 different times. It would never go in. It would never go in the goal, and it kind of went in the goal, bounced out. I mean, it was just just shocking, absolutely shocking.
I agree, but I'm sorry. Again, I have to say, and I know it's going to make me unpopular, it was a bad mistake by a defender.
Yes, maybe it was, but I mean, as we've heard many times, I mean, Jamie Carragher was on TalkSport not long ago saying, defenders do make mistakes. It was a high-pressure game. There was 90 seconds to go. They really didn't want to lose a last-minute goal or a last-second goal, and so she was probably trying desperately to stop the ball from reaching the Japanese forwards. So just really, really unlucky.
No, I have honestly, I have made allowances for all that and said, of course, she was trying her very best to clear it. She clearly didn't deliberately do what she did in striking the ball into her own goal, but I'm afraid it was an error, and that'll haunt the poor girl.
It will. It shouldn't take away, of course, from how brilliantly they've done and how terrifically the country's kind of got behind them as well, because it was, as we said the other night, the first semi-final of a World Cup competition that England have been in since 1990.
Well, I tell you what, they've done so well and made such an impression. I bet you when they get back now, the response they get won't be far short than that they would have got if they'd won the competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously, and so it should be. So so it will all end.
I think they will return to
a hero's welcome. And so they should. And also that poor girl, who I'm singling out, and I'm not singling her out for criticism. I'm just saying, unfortunately, that was a defensive blunder, and the poor girl will carry it with her for ages.
Well, I'm sure her teammates will help her through that.
I hope so. Yeah.
And so that means that Japan play the USA in the final, which is on Sunday night.
That's right.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. I wanted to go back to you on that trip to Newcastle you're making, by the way, because you said to me the other day that you'd had a bit of trouble actually getting hold of a ticket for that particular journey.
I just can't.
Nightmarish kind of internet booking system they've got.
Honestly, I'm telling you, the red tape in this country now, it doesn't half hold up business. Now, as you know from the work we do together, opening a bank account these days is just a nightmare. I've spent 6 weeks opening a new bank account because I wanted it to, on the advice of my accountant, because business is so diverse these days. There are different levels of VAT.
Right.
So he said, look, we'll open another account for this particular area of business and all that kind of stuff, the VAT claims and all that different. That took 6 weeks.
Yeah, incredible, isn't it?
And the worst one was at the end, it took another 2 weeks to get a credit card to ally to this bank account to make the very payments that had been set up for. You know what I mean?
It seems as though, actually, if you're trying to do something legitimately with any bank that you happen to be a member of, it's much more difficult than if you're doing something fraudulently. Do you remember when somebody was stealing my mail a couple of years ago? And somebody actually managed to get a new credit card in my name, which they then used. Much quicker than I could have got one myself.
Exactly.
Incredible.
And the point is, setting it up, and the amount of identification you need now, not just passports, but, bills for utilities and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then a massive, 10-day credit check.
Right.
Unbelievable.
And this is with a bank that you've been with for a long time,
40
right?
years.
Right.
40 years. And I've never been turned down for credit. I've got a triple gold star rating, credit references and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter. They go through things again and again and time again, and it's an absolute nightmare, and you still might end up not getting it and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the reason I'm telling you that is because buying a railway ticket was almost the same. I'll tell you what happened. I wanted to buy a railway ticket, and normally speaking, I have somebody, service that's provided, who buys a ticket for me. It's no problem at all. And I just send them a text or ring them up and say, look, I want to go to Newcastle, I want to leave London about 9 o'clock, get back by 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening, please. And this is all attached, by the way, to the fact that we're going to a show in Newcastle. Sure. Got a show in Newcastle 2 weeks on Saturday. I've got to go up there on Friday and sort things out with the theatre and do some interviews locally and all that kind of stuff. And the person who normally does it for me is not around. They just happen to be away. It's, holiday season, all that kind of stuff. I thought I can do this myself. So I go onto one of these online
and there's about 5 different ways you can do it as well. When you immediately put the ticket if you say you want to travel on the train, you get about 5 choices, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Anyway, I go to one of them, and then first of all, you've got to work out, do you want to go direct or do you want to change it? And then you've got to look at the prices and what they are at different times of day and all that kind of stuff. And then I work it all out, and then I want to go first class, so, booked in advance, all that kind of stuff. So eventually I find out what I want, and I go through the process. And it's about 4 or 5 pages of filling in information about myself, which I thought the computer might have had anyway, from previous tickets. Right. And you get to the last page and it says, put in your password before we can accept your credit card payment.
Which you didn't know, presumably.
No, I don't know what it is. I've never booked a train ticket before myself, so I just ignored that, and then it
and that's the problem. You take about 20 minutes to get to that point, and then you realise you can't go any further.
If they told me at the start, right, you do have these, don't you, and your password. I don't know what the password is. So then the red line comes up. You have not entered your password. Right. So then it says you can apply for a new password. So then I press another button. So then I have to send an email to an email address connected to this website. Right. To get a new...
and how long has this been taking at this point?
Well, I've already been on this site for about half an hour figuring things out, and trying to find out information about myself, which it needs.
Crazy.
Yeah. So then I send an email to this address, but it didn't come back for another hour. Right?
That's ridiculous.
It didn't come back for another hour, saying... Right. And when it came back in an hour's time, it said, you have now been granted permission to install a new... password
onto this account you didn't know you had.
Exactly.
Right. So, this is why it takes so long to do anything these days. You have to arrange for about 3 hours in the middle of the day.
Hang on. I then send them the new password. They then say, right, your new password acceptance will be verified within a few minutes. 30 minutes later, no verification, still can't buy the ticket.
You sure you were doing all this the right way, though?
I was doing it the best as I possibly could,
right?
Then, right... I suddenly sort of go back on all the page. I see a phone number at the top. I thought, I'm going to try this because it's easier for me. Right. So I ring on the phone number, and I get a guy, I think it was in India. It was certainly overseas. So, and
a call centre somewhere.
A call centre. I'm full of exasperation, and I said, thank God I've got through to you on the phone. I said, it drives me mad. I said, I'm of a certain age, and I'm not very dexterous on these things. And the guy on the other end, who was supposed to be helping me and sympathising, started laughing. And I said, no, I said...
Well, you do. I mean, you do tend to sound quite amusing when you're rattled.
No, I don't sound amusing. I sound like I'm trying to provide that guy with a job, and all he's doing is laughing down the phone at me. Yeah. He's laughing.
Were you shouting at him?
No, and do you know what? When before I got through to him, there's a message saying, these phone calls are recorded.
Right.
Okay? And obviously that's in case you get abusive and all that kind of stuff, which I never do at all.
Right.
But I said to him, excuse me, you do know this phone call's recorded, don't you? And he said, what? And I said, you are laughing at a customer. You're laughing at me. You think this is funny. I don't think it's funny. I said, and I don't take to you laughing at me. I'm going to report you to your superiors. We've got a recording of this phone call. You are a disgrace and all this kind of stuff, And
what happened in the end then?
Well, in the end, I said, but before I do that, you better sort this out. So then the guy takes my number and all that. But then comes the crunch point. This is where the catch-22 comes in.
Right.
He said, and what is the password on this credit card purchase? I said, what do you mean? He said, you need the same password. I said, what? I said, well,
the second one they gave you, or the first one that you didn't know?
Exactly. I said, I've just changed it. And he said, what have you changed it to? I told him. He said, no, that's not coming up. That hasn't been accepted. What is the original password? At which stage, I went and drowned myself in the bath.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's just unbelievable.
But you managed to get it done in the end, fortunately. So, you actually. I
could only get it done in the end by getting hold of somebody who knew the right procedures and paying them to buy me the ticket. You see what I mean? It was ridiculous.
It is absolutely ridiculous.
It drives you mad. It drives me mad.
I have had that problem before. It is unbelievable. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. There will be, of course, lots more to come. We've got Porky Vision coming up tonight. Mr. Parry's been watching some TV shows, and he'll be giving us the benefit of which ones he thinks you should watch as well, but listen out for the spoiler alert just in case. We'll be telling you some more about the terrible, unfortunate ending of that World Cup semi-final over in Edmonton, where England have gone down by 2-1 against Japan, and they're now out of the competition, but a tremendous effort to get as far as they got. Quite a few people, I have to say, Mr. Parry, are blaming you for this and saying it's the Porky curse has struck again.
No.
That's what quite a few people have tweeted in. Jason says, thanks, Porky, your curse strikes again.
No.
VHP says the Porky curse strikes again. No more predictions, please. Hashtag jinxed. And Mars says, Porky indeed jinxed the Lionesses. Please give him a kick, which I'm not going to do. But, I mean, to be honest, you have got quite a good record.
How can I curse something when I'm so supportive and I'm putting out tweets and texts all day saying, come on, girls, let's give it to them and all this kind of stuff, show the country the way and all that kind of... I mean, how can that possibly be a curse, for goodness sake?
Because normally when you get behind any particular team or individual, it never actually quite works out. You did get it right last night for America. Maybe you should have kept that particular prediction to yourself.
Yeah, well, I think that's a bit harsh to blame me there. I feel so sorry, as you say, for Laura Bassett, the poor girl. She tried her very, very best to try and... It was one of those that she just didn't get right. It didn't go over the bar, and it didn't go into an area where the goalkeeper could comfortably pick it up. It was a clearance which, we've seen it happen a million times in men's football, a clearance that turned into a shot, and the goalkeeper was left stranded. It was a terribly unfortunate wait for them to
so
exit
close
the competition.
to the end of the 90 minutes as well. There was only like 30 seconds left by the time that goal went in, so they had no time to recover. So, but as I say, they've done terribly well, and I think people will be very proud of how they performed over there in Canada. And it might do something for women's football in this country as well.
Some international news agencies, which I'm looking at here on my information device, are saying a freak goal ended England's chances.
Well, it was a freak goal.
Yeah, and they're calling it a freak goal. I mean, so my description of it perhaps is not even terribly accurate as well. Went in off the underside of the bar. I'm just looking at it again and again and again. I mean, that's what I said. If she'd done that same manoeuvre 100 times, it wouldn't have gone over the goalkeeper's head and into the net. And do you know what? Even the Japanese players following in couldn't believe that. They couldn't believe it had gone in.
Right.
They're stunned. Before they turned around and actually started cheering. Well, dear me, I don't know. But there we go. That's the cruelty of live sport, isn't it? Cruelty of modern sport.
So now you'll have to watch the final without England being in it, because you've been, as you've said before, a great supporter of women's football.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch it though.
What do you mean you're not going to watch
protest?
Why not?
Well, I have no great liaisons towards Japan or America in terms of the women's football team, even if it was the men's football team. I may not be able to. I find, I get terribly depressed when I watch the finals of competitions that England aren't in, because I feel,
well, you
must
be depressed an awful lot then, because they haven't been in the final of a competition for quite some time.
I tend to agree with you. I always feel to myself, why aren't we there? Why can't we do it? I feel sick to the pit of my stomach that we're not. We haven't been at the end of a big competition, as you quite rightly say, since 1990, and that wasn't the end. That was the end-ish. And
the semi-final.
The semi-final, yeah. But anyway, there we are. Now, this issue about this party you're going to, OK.
You're still going on about the party?
Well, I'm just a little bit puzzled as to, how this all happened. I've had a word with 1 or 2 people in the break about, and they agree with me, your afterthought, and so I wouldn't feel that,
But this is typical of you. What you would try to do is to kind of try and make the whole experience kind of not one that I would enjoy, by kind of trying to make out that I'm an afterthought, that I'm not on the guest list at the beginning and now I'm on the guest list at the end. That doesn't really matter to me. I'm just going to go and enjoy myself.
Well, I want you to have a great day, and I hope it goes well for you. But what I see, because I'm good at sociology, Mike, and I understand sociological situations. You know what I mean? Because you're an afterthought, you're going to be regarded as almost...
But you've assumed that I'm an afterthought, where in fact that might not be correct.
Well, I see. I just wanted to warn you. I think what's going to happen is when you get to this party, most people who are standing there in a little crowd, a little circle, all talking to each other, a glass in the hand, when you turn up, they won't move aside to let you into the circle.
Is that what you feel when you go to parties?
No,
this
no.
is more projectionist, isn't
but
it?
they regard you as such an inferior guest.
I don't think that's true.
No, I think they will.
Because you've made this assumption, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the case.
Oh, I think it will be.
You don't know who's holding the party. You don't know who's going to be there.
No.
You have no idea under which sort of auspices
all,
I've been invited.
All I can say is if it's a big, lavish thing at a country mansion and it's all fancy and all that, those invitations will have gone out about 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yours went out a week before. You're clearly there to make up the numbers. And most people will sneer and look down their nose at you at this party.
Maybe I've had the invite for quite some time. I just didn't want to tell you that I'd had it for a long time.
No, I don't think you
might then
have.
accuse me of keeping it a secret from you.
No, I don't think you have. I think now that you're trying to cover your tracks and make out that you're more important than you're not. I don't want you to go there and be humiliated.
Well, I'm not going to be humiliated.
I don't want people to, I think you could come away from that party feeling, golly, I was treated like a doormat all night long.
No, I won't ever feel like that because because the difference between you and I is that you like to go to places where you are sort of feted. You like to be the star of the show. You're not very comfortable going. You're not very comfortable going to places where there's lots of other people who might actually be more important than you. Whereas I don't mind about that. It doesn't worry me.
No, that's not true at all. It's just that I don't want you to feel downtrodden actually when you come away from the party. But look, if you want to go, you go. You go, and
I'm going.
I'm sure it'll be okay, but I wouldn't go in those sort of circumstances.
I'm very grateful for all of your. I'm very grateful for all of your sympathy.
I think I would know why I'd been invited, and I'd come away feeling rather worthless.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. The first question I'll ask the host is, was there any particular reason why you weren't invited? And I'll see what he has to say.
Well, no, you don't need to get into that. I mean, that might make him think that I'm actually concerned or worried about not being invited. Right. That I wanted to go to the party. Right. You know I'm a non-party goer.
You don't go to parties?
No.
So why are you making such a big fuss about it?
I'm not making a fuss. I'm not making a fuss.
And you certainly wouldn't dress up, would you? You would never dress up in fancy dress.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
So even if you got the invite, then therefore
I'd have to decline. I would have to decline.
So why are you getting so jealous about the fact that I'm going to a party?
No, I'm not jealous, Mike. I'm not jealous. I'm exactly the opposite because I'm your big mate. I'm just trying to help you with the rather harrowing sociological blow you might suffer from being in the company of your superiors who might spend all night ignoring you, and it might be a blow to your pride. That's all I'm thinking.
Well, you see, again, I'm not like you in that regard.
Okay.
I don't worry about people whether they're superior or inferior. Yep. I don't have that kind of classist thing going on in my brain.
Right.
So I'm not worried about somebody who might be more important than me or somebody who might be less important than me. I'm not worried about who has invited me and when I was invited and whether I was above somebody else or below somebody else, which is what seems to kind of permeate every single aspect of your daily life. So
okay.
I'll be fine.
Okay.
Trust me.
Now, are you going on your own or are you taking your partner in life with you?
I'm not going to give you any more information about it.
Oh, really?
If I do that, because all you're going to do is then turn it around into some kind of ridiculous kind of, you're going to kind of try and socio-analytically look at it and go, oh, well, this is why you're doing it that way.
Okay. Now, listen, I want to talk to you about dining habits in this country because you're always going on about making your own paellas and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, you eat most of those on your own, don't you?
Sometimes I eat them on my own. Sometimes I make them for my family. It depends on where I am.
Sure, but mostly on your own, certainly if you're in London and all that.
If I'm in London, yeah, absolutely.
Now, do you know that half the people in this country now eat on their own every evening? How about that?
Half the people?
Yeah, half the people in this country.
50% of the people in the country?
50% of the people in this country.
Is that because families are not actually spending time dining together, or is that because they've all split up?
Well, it's because there's so many more single people. A, we've got an ageing population. Right. A lot of them are widows or widowers. Right. B, we've got a lot more divorcees than we've ever had before. Right. C, we've got a lot more people who now get well into their 30s before they even think about sort of shacking up with somebody else and get married. So they take up a huge amount of accommodation in terms of singletons.
And we've got lots of people living in kind of shared accommodation, I suppose, who probably don't all eat together every single time.
Maybe. But here, I've got the report from the Consumer Association. Almost half of all meals are now eaten alone as divorce, later marriage, ageing problem fundamentally change the nation's relationship with food. It results in massive amounts of wasted food because when people go out and buy food, if they want to cook food for themselves and they want to go out and buy it, most of it gets wasted.
Yeah, see, I don't waste food at all. I'm very good at not wasting food.
How do you manage to buy for one and use it all?
Well, because if I cook, for example, paella, which if I don't eat all of it, then I put some of it in a little container and put it in the freezer. Same with anything else that I make, and I just eat it at another time. So I never waste food. I'm very conscious of that.
In 1980, which was the start of the sort of baby boomer era, when people born after the war suddenly became self-sufficient, you know what I mean?
Right.
Included me, actually, in their own ability to earn their own living. Are you
technically a baby boomer? I suppose you are, aren't you?
Well, not really. I was born 10 plus years after the war.
Right.
The best known baby boomer in the world is Bill Clinton. He was born the day after the war finished, wasn't he? And the Beatles were all baby boomers because they were all born in the last 2 years of the war.
So that's half a generation ahead of you,
Except for John Lennon, actually, who was born in 1940.
I suppose that's half a generation ahead of you then, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, yeah. But, no, what I was going to say is, you see, for instance, now I like fresh potatoes.
Do you?
New potatoes.
You also like smash, though, don't you? You also buy, like...
for convenience. But, I mean, what I'm talking about is new potatoes, and you get them in a bag for 85p in Tesco's.
Right.
But there's far too many for one person to eat.
How many do you get in a bag?
How many potatoes in a bag? About, at a guess, 15.
Well, why don't you buy them loose, then?
Well, because then you'd have to go to, like, a big sort of, supermarket and scoop them out of a sack, which is full of soil.
Right.
So
you don't
fancy
doing that?
No, I don't fancy doing that.
Okay.
No, I like my potatoes to be cleaned already when I buy them.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is you buy this plastic bag with 15 potatoes in it, and you go home, and you cook the meat and all that kind of stuff. Well, how many of the 15 potatoes are you going to eat?
Well, you don't have to eat them all at the same time, do you?
Well,
they would last for about a week or something, wouldn't they?
No, I only cook once a week. I haven't got time to cook
you
more
only
than
cook once a week?
Yeah, of course I do.
Well, which night do you cook? Is it always the same night?
No, it's usually Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
Or sometimes Friday.
Right.
It's usually Friday or Saturday
or Sunday. So you don't
cook
during the week at all? You just cook at the weekends?
No, I do cook during the week, but I have a different dietary programme.
Different dietary programme?
Yes.
Well, do tell us about the dietary programme.
Well, no, I either have sandwiches, or I have quiche.
Right.
Or I have...
Quiche?
What are you laughing at?
Quiche?
Yeah.
What sort of quiche do you have?
I like quiche Lorraine.
Quiche Lorraine?
Yeah.
That you buy, presumably, ready-made?
Well, I don't make it, do I, you idiot?
Well, you could do. Some people do.
Don't be ridiculous. You'd have to be a cordon bleu chef to make quiche Lorraine. And anyway, it's full of eggs, and I don't like eggs.
Well, why do you eat it then?
Well, I eat it with things like ham and tomatoes.
Oh, OK. So have you seen the time, by the way?
Nullifies the taste of the eggs.
We've run out of time. We're going to have to get your supplementary diet coming up.
What I was going to say was, when you don't eat all those new potatoes, they start growing in the fridge.
They do, yeah. If you leave them for a long time.
Yeah,
but you can keep them for about a week, though.
You throw them away.
I'm going to give you some advice on that coming up next on Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics at Porky Vision coming up a little bit later on. And, of course, there'll be a podcast coming out around about 9 o'clock this morning. Yeah, no, to go back to your potato debate,
right?
Go
on,
you don't actually, I mean, you can't really freeze them, but, I mean, you could probably keep potatoes for at least a week in the fridge without them, growing stalks and turning green.
I know you can, but, I mean, I wouldn't then fancy cooking them a week later, so I throw them away.
Right. Well, that's a terrible waste, really.
Well, sometimes I chop them up and put them out for, the birds or something like that, but it doesn't always work. They don't always come.
The birds don't eat potatoes. You're going to get rats and things if you put potatoes out on it.
Well, not in a roof garden, no, because there are only rats in a roof garden. That's what I mean.
Well,
but
rats can climb.
I wouldn't put them down. Yeah, but not to that height. Honestly, you wouldn't get. They'd get vertigo. Now, what I'm going to say to you was about this food and all that. Do you realise that, because I keep in touch with social trends?
Yes, of course.
That when people get married, they also get fat. And the reason for that is they comfort eat with each other, OK?
Well, perhaps it's because they're more content.
No, it's because they've sort of given up on their ambitions in life,
right?
Because they think now that they've actually achieved the main purpose of life, which is to find a partner, settle down.
And that can be quite dangerous, though, of course, if you are in a marriage and that happens, because then, people go off each other and they start to find each other less attractive, and then they start to look for somebody else.
We've just been talking about potatoes. You become a couch potato, because it's easier in your marriage to go home, flop down on the couch, yes, darling, put my dinner on the table, thank you very much. Oh, dinner's ready, we'll eat together and all that kind of stuff.
But also, is it not really part of the fact that people now work different hours? They don't necessarily finish at the same time. They might not get home at the same time and all of that.
No, there's all sorts of other reasons why.
Right.
And another reason why is because, certainly in the first few years of marriage, right, you don't want your partner to have too many interests outside of your interests, because the whole idea is that you're bonding together for life, not being apart.
This will be based on your expertise of marriage, of course.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
But you've never been married.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
matter, because you don't know what being married is like.
I'm a great authority on marriage, because I've seen about, I would say, 30 or 40 of my mates get married and then get divorced at least once, and some of them twice.
But did they all get divorced for the same reason?
And in your case, once, and then became unmarriable for the rest of your life.
But, I mean, did they all get unmarried or divorced for the same reason?
No, all sorts of different reasons. Right. But this one I'm telling you about now, and I remember this happening way back when I worked on the Old Chester Chronicle.
Yeah.
Remember, a lad got married very young when he was about sort of 21, OK?
Right.
And he worked with us, he got married. And then she stopped him from playing in the five-side football team every Thursday night.
Right.
When we used to go down to Harden, where Michael Owen lived, and play in a five-side football at Deeside Leisure Centre.
And what happened then?
Well, he got fat because that was his exercise for the week, playing five-a-side football.
Right.
She stopped him going out running in the morning. She didn't want him getting out of bed early and disturbing her and all that kind of stuff.
And did she stop him going out with the lads on a Friday night as well then?
Yes, all of that. Yeah, all of that. That's what I'm saying.
So that probably put you off getting married as well, because you probably thought, I fancy doing whatever I want to do.
Maybe, but that's what used to happen in those sort of days. Now, the BMI body mass index for a single man, used to be 25.7, but it's now 27.3.
For a single man?
Hang on, let me see here.
You sure you got this right?
No, sorry. Within a year of a man getting married, the BMI, the body mass index, goes up from 25.7 to 27.3, okay?
Right, okay.
And that's because you become a couch potato and you give up on it. And you don't do it. And therefore...
Which doesn't happen to everybody, but I suppose...
And therefore, marriage makes you fat. That's the point I'm making.
On a general level, it makes you kind of more comfortable and less concerned about how the opposite sex are going to look at you, I suppose. But it's not the same for everybody, though, is it?
And the other thing is, that if you're single, you don't feel you have to go through the ritual of the eating pattern. So, for instance, if you had a heavy night before, you get up. If you're married, your wife will make you eat something before you go to work.
Right.
If you're not married, you just skip breakfast at all, and that again helps you.
But we've
lose
also
the
seen,
pounds.
we've seen these surveys where fewer and fewer people actually have dinner together because, like I say, because the dad might work longer hours, or the mum might work longer hours, and sometimes the children eat separately. I mean, it's just the family dining table is no longer the place where everybody kind of sits. People tend to now eat at like the breakfast bar or something like that because they all can eat at whatever time they want to eat.
Yes, no, that could be a case, but generally speaking, believe me, this report that I saw today, and it's backed by the World Health Organization, says that when you get married, you get fatter. That it's a fact of life.
I thought you started off on the possibility of more people eating on their own, though.
What?
Yeah, I thought you started off with a survey of people eating on their own.
Oh, half people in the world eat on their own.
So is this a different thing now?
It's completely different. What I'm doing is I'm looking at social trends, and in my mind...
You're confusing me with all these surveys.
No. My mind is like a jigsaw puzzle.
It is a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. There's a couple of pieces missing,
No. And I can put facts and figures together, and what I'm saying is half the world now eat on their own, okay?
Right.
And, you might have the vision of some lonely person eating on their own.
But if you're saying
it's not me. When I eat on my own, I'm quite content. I don't want anybody talking to me.
But you're saying if half the people are eating on their own... and then loads of married people are getting bigger or fatter or whatever it is. Presumably that means that that's a good thing because there are fewer people are married, more people are eating on their own. So actually it evens itself out in the end, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't, because what I'm saying is that although it's good for the single people not to be putting weight on, it's still bad for the married people to be putting weight on.
But there's less of them, presumably.
So there are no positives. Well, there might be less of them, but remember, the population of the world is expanding so rapidly that one nullifies the other, okay?
Here's some
can you understand that? Can you get that into your head? Probably not.
I don't think I can. Here's a piece of advice from Ben, who's tweeted at the two mics. Bury the potatoes, grow some nice plants with pretty little flowers, and then get even more potatoes. It's called recycling. So you could do that on the roof terrace, couldn't you?
No, I can't. No, there's not enough soil on the roof terrace to bury a load of potatoes.
Well, you don't bury them in the roof terrace, you bury them in a pot, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I'm not growing potatoes on my roof terrace. There's too many beautiful flowers on the terrace. In fact, I was watering them again today. You have to water them every day at the moment.
You could give it a go, couldn't you?
It's a lot of water, by the way. You want to see the size of the watering cans I have to take around with me. By the way, I forgot to tell you, I was going to tell you at the start of this show, I have decided to pursue a new sort of moral... sort of compass type thing in life.
A new moral compass?
Yeah.
What, you mean you're going to stop cheating and lying and betraying people?
No.
That sort of moral compass?
No. It was something that I came across and I thought about it and I thought that is a very, very good, what's the word I'm looking for, motto to adopt in life.
So what's your new motto then?
Well, my new motto is that those who are first shall be last, and those who are last should be first.
That's a very, very kind of compassionate motto for someone like you to have, because normally you would say that those who are last are a bunch of losers because they're not winning.
No.
So why have you suddenly had this about face?
Because I believe that when you're in a privileged position like I am, to have had a decent life in a decent country where you haven't been brutalised too much and...
You haven't been brutalised too much.
No, that's right.
Brutalised a little bit.
Well, brutalised a little bit, yeah, obviously. And you feel that... that other people have not been as fortunate. I feel that the whole purpose of my life now is giving, not taking.
Oh, right.
And for that,
so how is this going to manifest itself then?
Well,
you're going to have to completely change everything that you do. You're going to have to change your outlook on life. You're going to have to change the way that you operate at work. You're going to have to change almost every single previous philosophy that you've lived by.
Well, what about my extreme generosity to charities?
Well, you've already stopped doing that, you told me.
No, I haven't.
Apart from the local ones.
Exactly. I've rebooted it to make sure it goes to local charities now and not other charities. But I do believe that if more people adopted that philosophy, those who are last shall be first.
It's quite a sort of Christian-sounding philosophy.
Well, I'm a Christian. This is the point.
You have said that in the past. So what have you done today with this new philosophy? Well, how has that affected it?
I've only just adopted it, and therefore I feel that it'll take some time for me to actually, introduce it into my thinking and living pattern.
Right.
But it will.
Does this mean you're going to change your view of people as well? Because you've been quite snobbish in the past about people
I'm not.
who haven't particularly been successful in life, or people who have lived and died in the same part of the country, people who haven't been sort of climbing up the greasy pole and stepping on other people.
No, I haven't. No, that's largely very unfair. Now, look, the other thing I was going to tell you, talking about people, right? Do you remember I said some time ago, I don't said it to you, I said it to somebody on another radio station.
You said it to somebody else, on another radio station?
I might have done. But
you can't remember what you've said to me.
What I said was that when criminals are released into open prisons, and then they go on day release and all that, what is the problem with inserting a microchip in their head in the same way as we put microchips into dogs?
Well, there's serious problems with that, isn't there? Because lots of people would say, well, that is an idiotic idea because, one, you haven't got the right to do it to people for a start. And that's why they have bracelets, that's why they have anklets and all that kind of thing to actually keep track of them.
Yeah, but clever criminals just break those off or ignore them or they confuse the signal so that the people who are supposed to be reading the machinery at the other end can't tell whether you've gone out or not when you're under a curfew and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think you've introduced this idea before and I don't think it's a very good one. I don't think you'd ever get it past the human rights crowd.
But I've got evidence now that not only is it something that can be introduced, but actually you can now, in the free world, go to a place where you can apply to be microchipped with all the relevant information on that microchip to your identity, who you are, where you are, and all that kind of stuff. But
where would you go to get that done?
Well, you can get it done now.
Where?
I don't know actually where, but I know there are places where you can get it done. And scientists now say it's got to be the future. Everybody's got to be microchipped. And if you microchipped everybody, it would help enormously with things like escaped criminals, people who wander off with dementia.
But what if they ended up getting
a
different microchip, or they've got a forged microchip, or they
you can't forge it. You can't forge it. It's like the the film, the last Bourne film, where the bloke actually cut the first Bourne film. What's it called? The Bourne Identity. Yeah. They actually cut the microchip out of his body and give it to him, don't they?
Yeah.
So it can be done with secret agents.
That's a scientific sort of thing that wasn't actually available when they made that film. That's a piece of fiction.
No, but it is now.
Well, we don't know that.
No, it is. I do know that. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, hold that thought.
The trouble with you is your brain's not big enough to accept all the information that I know.
There's no need to start shouting. What about your new compassionate nature that's not supposed to be so horrible? He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. Coming up, we're going to talk about more microchipping, but also we're going to find out what's happened to the time because it's moved on. This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes. Porky Vision's coming up in the next hour, of course, and Mr. Parry will be telling us what he's been looking at on TV. There's been some very interesting programmes, actually, that people have been nominating that you should have a look at. I don't know whether you've picked any of that up on Twitter, but, lots of tweets.
What sort of ones?
Well, I mean, lots of programmes that they think you should look at because they think they'd benefit from the sort of forensic way that you look at programmes.
I very much appreciate their advice. Now, I'll only get back to the microchip,
Yeah, go on.
Because this is really important.
I don't think you've explained it properly. What you're saying is kind of a technological advance, whereby everyone in the world will be microchipped in some way, shape or form, because that will be the way that they carry their identity with them.
Well, listen to this.
Is that what you're saying?
Listen to this, right? I came across this today.
Right.
There was a young chap, age 15, called Brian Wake, and it's spelled Bryon and then Wake, okay? Now, I don't know how this happened, and I find this really weird because I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. He ordered a microchip kit from America. It arrived. He then somehow got all the information that he needed onto this chip, which is the size of a grain of rice.
He's in this country.
He's in this country. He lives in Reading.
Right.
He lives in Reading, right?
You don't have to give out where he lives.
Well, they might as well, because it's publicly available on the internet and all this kind of stuff, right? He then somehow gets all the information he needs about his life onto this microchip, which is the size of a grain of rice. and he's now had it inserted into his hand.
Has he?
Now, amongst the information on it are things like he can control his mobile phone. Right. He can unlock doors that have got codes on them because it's programmed into his microchip.
Only presumably doors that he actually knows the code for.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So he can't just go around opening any door.
No. And he can hand out electronic business cards.
Can he?
By bleeping them into your phone.
How bizarre.
I mean...
Are you sure this is not some kind of April Fool you've read?
Well, this is what I couldn't work out. Now, this guy doesn't come from Reading, actually, comes from Somerset. He says he ordered the kit from the US. He said, I didn't tell my parents until 3 days later, and then afterwards I checked it out at the doctors who said it was fine and they were happy. The chip is encased in biosafe glass, similar to chips used to identify dogs, and it emits a radio frequency signature that triggers pre-programmed commands.
And how did he get it into his hand? Did he have to get a doctor to do that, or did he just do it himself?
I'm not sure, but there's a professor here, Professor Kevin Warwick, who's a leading expert on cybernetics. I mean, sounds like a plot from Doctor Who.
It does.
So, at the University of Reading, he said quite a few people have got these, but he may well be the youngest and probably the most advanced. I mean, I don't get all this, but that's apparently...
And presumably he can update this thing as well if he wants to do it. So it's not really an ID chip then. It's more likely to be something that he carries information around that he doesn't want to carry in some other form.
Yeah, but what I don't understand, when it says it can activate his mobile phone, what does he do? Does he wave his microchip at his phone or something?
I have no idea.
Well, I mean, that must be it.
Yeah.
That must be it. And unlocking doors with codes, and I mean, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? If you lived in a block of flats and you needed a code entrance to get in, and you went out and you got bladdered,
right, and you forgot the code.
You couldn't forgot the code, but you go and just wave
naturally,
your microchip.
you would find that usage for it rather than anything else. That it'd be great.
Wouldn't most people?
Well, yeah, but I mean, surely you don't.
If you could remember it all the time, why put it in a microchip and put the microchip in your arm? You'd be mad.
It seems to me that unless everybody else is doing it, and you're not going to be able to communicate with lots of other people because they haven't got them, then it's a bit of a waste of time, isn't it?
No, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's an even better idea to put it into the heads of criminals who are on the run.
What, so they can open doors with all sorts of information in their microchip?
No. What I'm saying is the authorities have the responsibility for inserting the microchip into the head or the body of a
that
criminal.
seems to be very different technology. That's not technology they can track you with, is it? They're not going to be able to track people with that.
No.
But also, I mean, if it's something that you want to do, that's fine. But if it's not something you want to do and somebody's going to force it upon you, I just don't think that's going to fly.
No, I totally agree.
That's the strangest story I've ever heard.
Well, what I can't understand is how it hasn't got so much more provenance. Because if this is true and if these things are available and there are now companies in this country which will inject you with microchips,
right.
I would have thought that'd be a massive issue. Some sort of massive issue about, what do we call it? The balance between science and humanity and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And it sounds like cybernetics as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I'd be in favour of that at this particular time, I have to say. Would you have one of these things put in then so that you could remember your PIN numbers at bank accounts and all that kind of thing? Because you have had difficulties in the past with those, haven't you? If you have to remember so many different PIN numbers.
Well, you do. You do have difficulties. If you carry around so many cards these days, how does anybody remember the code names? And the particular difficulty is if you use a card, for instance, you haven't used a card for a few months and all that, and you think, what is the PIN number for this? If you're carrying it around in the wallet that the card's in, well, that's counterproductive, isn't it? Because then somebody else could find it.
And I've done that with iPads and things before as well. Because if you change it for some reason, which I do from time to time, not so much now, but when the kids were smaller, to stop them from getting into it, and you change it kind of in a hurry, and then you can't remember exactly what it is.
Exactly.
After about 4 goes, it locks you out. And you can't get back into it.
No, that's absolutely right. And the other thing is, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, these new cards that have got one of those like little symbols on, which shows like an echo thing going out. 3 half circles.
Contact. The touch cards.
Now, if people find those in the street, they don't even need to know what your PIN number is anymore. They just go to the local boozer, right, and they literally, right, £2 a better, please, bang, and you just keep hitting it because you can order anything.
But it can only go up to £20, though, can't it?
I thought
there's a maximum of £20.
Oh, isn't it an individual purchase of £20, or is it a total?
No, it's at one time. I think that's what it is. I don't know how many times you can do it.
Yeah, well, so couldn't you walk up and down, say Epsom High Street, and just go into 8 different pubs and buy a beer in every one using a stolen card?
I suppose you could.
Yeah, well, there you go. You see? So that's not.
I'm not sure how they handle the security on that, but actually a funny story about that because when we were driving up to Manchester the other day, we came through the M6 toll, which is of course, as you know, a much quicker way of getting around Birmingham, right? And we got up to the paying toll booth, and our exec producer said, "Well, why don't we go through the contactless lane, because that's a lot quicker. You don't have to pay money to anybody." So I thought, fine. We went to this lane. Soon realised we were stuck behind somebody who didn't know how to use it, right? And he was sitting there, and his card was going in and out. He was trying to put the card into the machine. The card was coming out. He was turning the card over, putting it back in. That was not doing anything. Turned it the other way, and you could just see that this guy had no clue what was going on. Right? And then he tried to open the door, tried to get out of the car. The door wouldn't open because he was too close to the machine. Nobody was coming to help him. And by this time, there was a huge queue of cars behind us. And in the end, he just got out, our exec producer, heroically, and basically said to the guy, "Have you got any money?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." He said, "Look, give me £5. I'll do it on my card." And he hit his card on it, and off the guy went.
Right,
Absolutely extraordinary.
Well, so all he had to do was touch it with a card. Even I could have done that.
Yeah, all he had to do was touch it with a card, but maybe he didn't have a contactless card.
Yeah. I see what you mean. He was waving a card around.
He might have been waving a card around that wasn't right, but he couldn't make it work in any way, shape or form.
Yeah. That is the problem with new technology. There's people of a certain age who will never take to it. And if it, I mean, this is the big row in supermarkets about these machines that don't have anybody sitting behind them anymore.
Yeah, right.
And the problem with them is they're not properly developed yet, because you know what's happened to me.
Have you ever tried the one where you scan the stuff as you go around the supermarket? Have you tried that?
Well, I thought they'd gone. They came in years ago, and then they took them away again.
No, they didn't take them away.
No,
They're
you
still
pick up
there.
a machine as you go in. So you get your trolley and you get the machine, right? And you go around and you scan it. I've never seen that. I haven't seen those for years.
Haven't you?
I think they've been taken out.
They've been taken
out. You know the one where you do it yourself, the self-serve and all that. You know that doesn't work. First of all, it says goods in the wrong area or something like that.
Right.
But secondly, if you then take it out, and this has happened to me, I thought, well, it says put it in this area. I put it in this area. Why doesn't it work? I take it out and I move it back towards the machine to see whether there's a blockage in the area.
It's all a complete mystery to you, all this, isn't it?
Yeah, but then the loaf of bread with the barcode checks into the machine again. I got charged double. Oh, that was the other thing.
I think you shouldn't go anywhere near supermarkets. I don't think you're prepared for the technology.
That was the other thing that happened the other day. When I was trying to order that rail card, I forgot to tell you.
Right.
When I eventually got through, and at the end, he sent me an email. I'd bought 2 tickets for that rail journey on Friday.
2?
2.
So you spent twice as much as you needed to?
Well, obviously, I then had to get back onto somebody else and say, "What are you charging me 2 for?" And they said, "You ordered 2. I said, "No, I didn't." I said, I'm only going on one journey. I'm going there and I'm going back. But the total cost is this, and you've charged me for 2 journeys. And the guy, then I had to get somebody else. I said, "Well, you've told our operator there's 2 of you travelling." I said, "I didn't."
About 5 hours to get this sorted out.
It took me hours. It was terrible, honestly. I am, when it comes to that sort of thing, I just hate and loathe it. It is a waste of time. Complete waste of time.
Unbelievable. You should put yourself up for scientific research as the man that knows the least of anybody in the entire world about technology. Absolutely incredible.
Not at all.
Absolutely incredible.
I just think that the problem is that they're trying to push the borders of technology beyond what the human brain is capable of. And unless you're Einstein and can work it out, other people regard you as being stupid, because most people, like me, don't adapt to it, but are frightened by their peer pressure of being thought to be a dimwit.
Yes.
Too frightened to admit that they can't.
Because you don't want to be thought of as a dimwit.
No, I'm not a dimwit. That's because I'm not a dimwit.
Well, we'll talk to somebody who's very intelligent coming up very shortly about this business of the leap second and how time has changed, and maybe
that's
time
has
passed you by. Well, look at the clock, look into the light, because it's all coming up next on Talk Sport. This is TalkSport. We are the 2 mics. Got a great text here, a tweet rather, from Becky, who says, "Both my cats are microchipped, and this opens the cat flap. Could be very useful with the same technology applied for bladder. That's
incredible.
I guess
absolutely incredible.
Yeah, but you think this is all magic, you see. You think all of this stuff is kind of, technologically impossible.
You
because
can do magic.
I think, unfortunately, people in your sort of generation are, locked in this place where you think nothing like this could have ever happened, and now that it has happened, I can't quite understand how it works.
Well, it couldn't have happened before, because it is the forefront of new technology, isn't it?
Well, it is. And we're now going to talk a little bit about that, but not just about new technology, but about how new technology was affected.
Okay.
Because we moved, for the first time in 3 years, we added a leap second to the clocks in the world. And we're going to talk to Steve Allen, who's from the Lick Observatory in California, to find out exactly what it's all about. Steve, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning to you. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks very much. This is the first time this has happened since 2012. So can you kind of talk us through precisely what a leap second is and why we needed to change the clocks?
Well, 40 years ago, we decided that the setting the clock by sundial wasn't good enough anymore, and we decided to use cesium atoms instead of watching the sun. So all of the clocks tick with cesium atoms, but we decided to keep the calendar connected to the spinning Earth. And the cesium atoms tick too fast, so sometimes they get to 11:59:59, and they say, okay, it's about time to be tomorrow, but the Earth hasn't got there yet. So we say, wait a second, and you wait 1 second, and then you say, now it's tomorrow. And that's how we keep the calendar in line, while also keeping the seconds all uniform, the way people like to have their seconds all the same.
Steve, I understand there's a scientific principle behind this, but what actually would have happened to the world, to the Earth, to the future of the universe if you hadn't made this 1 second correction?
Your calendar gets wrong. The clocks just keep ticking, but they have no connection to where the sun is and when it's tomorrow.
But nobody would notice a 1 second difference. I mean, 1 second is infinitesimal in the eyes of the universe.
Well, that's the number we decided. We decided it can't be more than 1 second off. But if you stop doing the leap seconds and the Earth stops turning, then the cesium atoms will tell you it's tomorrow, even though the sun never rises again. So your calendar will keep going up, even though you never see the sunrise.
So this is something you have to do over a period of time, right? So you don't say it's just 1 second every 3 years. It might change, or if you didn't do it as often as you do it, then somehow would we lose a day? Would we lose a month? How would it work?
It will take a long time to lose a month. I mean, it will take longer than civilization is going to last to lose a month. But the real question is, what do we mean by day? Do we want the day to be connected to cesium atoms, or do we want the day to be connected to the sun and the Earth?
Well, I can't answer that one because I'm not a scientist. The only thing
we're used to having a day lasting 24 hours, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that the definition of a day?
That's right, but what do you mean by hour? Do you mean a cesium hour or a day, an hour on a sundial?
Well, we mean 60 minutes, don't we?
Well, but what do you mean by minute? Do you mean a minute from watching the sun on your sundial, or do you mean a minute from cesium atoms? You have to decide.
Progressively, this conversation's going sort of nowhere, because in a minute we mean 60 seconds.
And what sort of seconds do you want, would be my question.
And that's right, yes.
So what's the difference, Steve? I mean, obviously, if we've added 1 second over the course of 3 years, that's, as Mike said earlier, that's not a great deal of difference, really, is it?
It's enough to keep the calendar on time with where the sun is.
Yeah, I'm not
that's
sure.
That's all it's aiming to do.
I'm not sure it matters, to be honest. What's cesium, anyway? I'm sorry, most of our listeners, including me, don't even know what cesium is.
It's an element which will explode if you throw it in the toilet.
You don't want to get your hands on that stuff.
No. I'm afraid I'm a bit lost there. Steve, thank you ever so much indeed. I tell you what, I do remember, Mike, from my history lessons. I was a student of history at school.
You were,
as well.
Of course, yeah.
You know Wat Tyler and the Peasants' Revolt?
Yes.
Do you know part of that started because they changed the calendar from whatever the Romans had given us to the calendar we've got today. And it meant that the year was shorter by 5 days.
Right.
And all these peasants who weren't very bright...
revolted?
Well, yeah, sort of, but they're revolting about the fact they didn't have any bread and they're all starving. And
so why were they bothered about calendars then?
Well, I'm about to tell you, and all their feet were falling off because they all had gangrene and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
They all marched from
somewhere
they did, down the southeast of England to London.
Well,
Must have been hard to do. They didn't have any feet.
Well, no, I mean that's why the feet became gangrenous.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. By the time they arrived in London and all that, but then they found out that they were changing the calendar and that they lopped 5 days off each year.
Is this something to do with the Gregorian calendar that was put into place? Because was there not a calendar before the Romans came along?
Yeah,
right?
but this is the one the Romans gave us. This is what I'm saying. So when they decided to go from the Roman one to the one we've got now, and they took 5 days off each year, the peasants, who were rather dim, because they were all sort of, didn't have any education, and they were all...
That's why they were peasants.
Exactly, and they were all illiterate and couldn't think straight and all that. They said, the year's going to be 5 days shorter, and they said, they're all sitting around the campfire saying they're taking 5 days off us.
Trying to work that out.
Yeah, well, no, they thought that was going to shorten your life by 5 days each year.
Well, I suppose you might think that.
So if you lived another 10 years, they thought, well, I'm going to die 50 days early.
Right. Well, I mean, listening to that guy...
Because they couldn't think very straight.
Well, I mean, you do feel kind of slightly sort of flummoxed when somebody like Steve Allen there from the observatory in California starts trying to ask you what the difference is between, 1 minute as we know it and a minute as he knows it. And in a way,
minute,
a cesium minute. Doesn't sound
did he say that the cesium was some sort of powder you throw on a fire? What do you mean by that?
No, he said that if you threw it in the toilet, it would explode.
Cesium?
It's an element, yeah. It's an atomic... I presume it's an atomic element, isn't it?
Oh, maybe he meant sodium.
Did he?
Did you mean sodium?
No, I don't think he meant sodium. He meant cesium.
Well, I remember we had a chemistry master called John Lay at the King's School Chester, L-E-Y, OK?
Right.
And he was a very dull man, and he was kind of Welsh as well.
Welsh?
But he was very dull.
Right.
And he was a brilliant
Is he still
man.
alive?
Yeah, I don't know. But I think he'd been to Cambridge University, and he said, and he... Continuous chemistry, and he got this bit of thing out, tiny
bit of thing.
Yeah, it was like
an element of some kind.
I think it was called sodium, and it was so small. I mean, it was minuscule, but he dropped it into a.
Isn't sodium salt though?
Sodium is salt, so it wasn't sodium, but it was something that fizzes a lot. Okay, fizzes a lot, and he dropped it into a tank of water, and it fizzed around like a demented sort of powerboat machine, until it just burned itself out.
Was it magnesium?
Magnesium or something like that, but anyway,
which when you have a Bunsen burner and you hold magnesium over it, and it burns incredibly brightly.
Right. Well, it wasn't that because this was a reaction to water. Okay.
Right. Were you wearing any safety goggles at this point?
Well, it was in a glass. It was in a glass tank.
Oh, okay.
In a glass tank.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway. And this guy was terribly dull, and...
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. So...
That's why I wondered if he was still around, in case he might be listening and might be taking great offence.
I don't care if he thinks I
don't care?
Him dull.
What about your new motto about, the first should be last and the last should be first?
Well, that's for younger people.
Unless you're dull.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But anyway, so, he said, and of course, chemical matter can sometimes be used in quite the wrong way, and that is why, we must educate people in the use of it. He says, for instance, this matter in this bowl here, which is fizzing around, he said, a very evil person in a restaurant in America made a bar of soap of it. And when the person came in and picked it up, it did not burn his hands, but the minute he put it in the water to wash his hands, it blew the restaurant up. So we all started laughing.
Right. This is what you took out of your years of chemistry study, right?
Yeah, he said it blew the restaurant up. Oh, he didn't, honestly, his face never even flickered. And he looked at me and he said, Parry, that is not funny. he said, it is not funny.
He must have been constantly being sent out of class at various points. Yeah. But I mean, one of the things that we never got to ask Steve Allen, because I think we were both rather flummoxed by his approach.
Yes.
Because he just kept asking us questions and we asked him questions. Which is a good way to operate, actually, with us. I mean, that's all, he's now found, he's found a way to deal with it.
Yeah, but he didn't have a sense of humour either. These scientists don't have a sense of humour.
I think he did have a sense of humour. I think he was just trying to put you in your place. But, I mean, basically, apparently, when this happened, it upset quite a few things like Twitter, it upset Android, it upset quite a few kind of...
It didn't, though.
Well, it did, apparently.
No, it didn't.
Yes, what do you mean it didn't? Well,
Because I'm...
You wouldn't know if it caused any problems.
All right, and did all the computers around the world crash?
They did, yeah.
Oh, OK, so we couldn't get any money out of the banks then?
Well,
and aeroplanes started falling out of the sky. This is all the same load of propaganda nonsense.
No, they didn't.
We were all told about the Millennium.
Yeah, the Millennium bug.
Oh, the Millennium bug's going to be dreadful. Aeroplanes drop out the sky. Right. Trains stop running.
Yeah, well, that's happened.
All these sort of things will happen because the computers will get so confused they won't know what to do. Power stations will start closing down. All the lifts will stop working in tower blocks and all that. None of that happened. None of that happened. But it's all a scientific scare because scientists think they rule the world and they don't.
But you don't understand any of it, do you?
I understand everything. I understand that man's will to dominate will always overcome machines. It's ludicrous.
You think so? I've got a text here from somebody who doesn't give their name saying, Mr. Parry, it is potassium that reacts to water.
Potassium, that's it.
So
that's
potassium.
That's what it was. It was potassium, definitely,
yeah. All right.
And somebody made a bar of soap out of potassium and left it in a washroom in a restaurant in America. It blew the whole restaurant up because there was so much of it and applied to water, bang, I thought it was very funny. Mr. Lay didn't, you should get a sense of humour, and then perhaps I'd have turned out to be a better person.
Well, maybe you shouldn't hold so much against your teachers and the people that raised you at school, because, I mean, you were talking, presumably this happened at the King's School, Chester, which was going on about was a great school.
Yeah, it is a great school,
you just had to go at all the teachers for not teaching you properly.
We had a physics teacher called Spid. Right.
Spid?
Yeah, Spid.
Is he still around?
Well, I hope not, because he was 72 and he taught me. And he was
no wonder you don't go back to any of the reunions, by the way.
And by the way, he was a man for whom I had a great respect. He was a World War II fighter pilot in the Spitfire. So I had a lot of respect for him.
Was that his nickname or was that his real name?
Well, because his name somehow was Spider. Right. So we called him Spid, obviously.
Spider?
Yeah, Spider.
Well, that was his real name either.
Well, it was part of his name. I don't know why. I think he wrote a book on spiders, actually. Seriously, yeah. He was like a botanist. You know what I mean?
What did he teach you then?
Physics.
Physics?
Yeah.
He was a botanist that taught physics?
Yeah, he was, but they were all like that, all these mad scientists. Honestly, they all did the same thing. But I remember he was a sort of guy who he'd gone a bit mad, and on the 23rd of January every year, he'd come round and wish you Happy New Year and all this kind of stuff.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah. But he was a great guy.
I thought you said this was one of the best schools in the country.
It is. Yeah, it
seems as though the science department left a little bit beat his eyes.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it perhaps did. Yeah. I mean, look, every school's got its eccentrics. He was just one of the eccentrics. That was all.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was definitely potassium. The story about the chemical explosion.
I'm surprised you didn't decide then to try and get your hands on some potassium.
That would have been funny.
And then go and play some jokes on people. But that's another story altogether. Now, coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking about Porky Vision. So I hope you've prepared a lot of stuff that you've actually looked at. Here's one from Sean who says, I'm not sure what the hell that last guy was talking about. He might as well have been talking in a foreign language.
Exactly. I totally agree. You see, the listeners are on my side on this one. You try to big up these scientists and say, this is terribly deep information. To me, it was gobbledygook and nonsense. Just rubbish. Well, why do you need to make it 1 second? You could let that go for at least 100 years.
Well, you couldn't, because
in the end... And make up 30 seconds.
Well, no, because... Well, you couldn't do...
It's once every 3 years.
Well, how would you make up 30 seconds? Just tell everybody to stop what they were doing.
Yeah, just leap the world by 30 seconds. That's all you have to do.
Just say to everyone, just stop what you're doing. Don't do anything at all. Don't make any phone calls. Don't use your computer. Just stand still for 30 seconds and then everything will be fine.
Old Taxi here says, you're right for a change, Mr. Parry. The Millennium Bug was one big con, excuse for people to make money for nothing. Everybody's buying, Millennium Bug insurance and all that rubbish,
Did you buy that?
No, of course not. I knew it was never going to happen. I knew it was never going to happen. Yeah.
Becky says, I took full advantage of the recalibration of the atomic clock by having a full 1 second lie-in. It was extremely enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
See, I don't think people are grasping the importance of this stuff.
Yeah, I work at a fuel station. You can scan the barcode outside by the pumps to pay for fuel.
What?
Well, everybody can do that, can't they?
Scan what barcode?
I don't know. There's a barcode apparently on the petrol pumps now, and you just put your money in and then
you pay at the pump. Somebody actually said to me they were charging a secret £1 for the privilege of doing that. I don't know if that's true, but if you pay at the pump, you actually get charged an extra £1.
Ooh, I don't know.
You ever done that?
No, I've never done that. No, I had to go inside and pay where I know my money's going.
Yeah, right.
Not into the ether.
Well, you have to look at the time now because
we
haven't got a leap second to spare.
If you love the Two Mikes podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
There will be, of course, a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Quite a few tweets to read out to you as well about the scientific thing. How about this from Ben? This is brilliant. The difference in the average length of the year between Julian, which was one calendar, 365.25 days, and Gregorian, 365.2425 days, is 0.002%.
So that's not worth bothering about.
Well, I think he's talking about the change from the Roman calendar to the Gregorian calendar.
Oh no, the one I'm talking about was the Peasants' Revolt. Give us our days back.
But you're saying it was 5 days.
Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
He's saying it's less than 1 day.
Well, that was a different policy altogether. That was a different issue. But thank you very much indeed for the advice, even though it doesn't tally with what I know.
And Chris says sodium, potassium, magnesium, and cesium all explode in water because they're all part of the same section of the periodic table.
Oh, really? Oh, well, that's what the madman in New York must have done. Must have come across a compilation of those drugs and fashioned a bar of soap out of it. Now, listen, I want to talk to you about the Heathrow situation on the third runway.
The Heathrow situation? What is the Heathrow situation?
Well, the report that's been going on for years and years and years has finally come out and said, yeah, we've got to build a third runway at Heathrow.
And nobody seems to agree with it, do they?
Well, I just don't get this. If we don't, then the country's going to become a third world country, because if we haven't got an airport big enough to cater with all the people who want to come here and all the business they want to do, they're going to go elsewhere.
But what happened to all the alternative methods of making either Gatwick bigger or going with Boris? Because I saw Boris Johnson being interviewed on this last night, and he was saying that, this is not the right way forward, because what you should do is actually build another airport on Boris Island, somewhere in the middle of the Thames estuary.
But he's mad. That would take 30 years, and it would cost money that the country couldn't afford. It would bankrupt it.
Yeah, but how do you think it's going to affect the current state of Heathrow, which is really not a very efficient airport?
I don't care. Knock some houses down, then.
Well, that's what they're claiming they're going to do. But what I'm saying is that will that not disrupt the amount of planes and departures and arrivals that are able to come into Heathrow while they're building the extra runway?
I think Boris Johnson's gone mad. Boris Johnson's supposed to be a man who favours free trade and enterprise, OK?
Yeah.
You can only have free trade and enterprise if you've got an efficient airport. But he, on an ego trip, says, we'll build a new one in the Thames estuary and call it, Boris Johnson Airways or something, and whatever. And now that because they've said, no, we're going to build a third one at Heathrow, according to some of the reports are going to be in tomorrow morning's papers, Mr Cameron, the so-called Prime Minister...
The so-called Prime Minister?
Yeah, well,
he is the Prime Minister, really,
the Prime Minister, sorry, I'll correct that. The Prime Minister, it is being said by some political commentators, he's actually being bullied by Boris Johnson, who obviously is a favourite to replace him when Mr Cameron chooses not to be Prime Minister anymore.
Right.
And Mr Cameron's going to shelve this report and put it in the bottom drawer for 20 years.
Well, I think that's probably more than likely what he's going to do, because it didn't seem to me that anyone, when I was watching this last night on the TV news, anyone is actually in favour of it, because the people who live around Heathrow don't want it. The people who run Heathrow say that Heathrow is already kind of at maximum capacity.
It's rubbish.
And there's some business people who say, this is definitely the way to do it. Yeah. Unless you're going to turn West London into an airport completely and utterly.
Yeah.
And how on earth is everybody going to get in from there? I mean, it's hard enough to get into Heathrow and out of it within a couple of hours. If you've got so many people now coming in and out of it, and you put another runway there, and you increase the capacity by
what's the alternative then? What's the alternative? Just let the country go to the dogs?
Well, no, just build another airport somewhere else.
Well, but that will take too long. China, which is an emerging country, I mean, it's much, much easier to do these things in a country which is, developing, emerging,
well, it's
whatever
emerged,
it's called.
I think. I mean, it's one of the biggest economies in the world, isn't it?
Well, China used to be a third world country. And third world countries, when they suddenly start get going, like India and China and Brazil and places like that, right? They can suddenly do things at 10 times the pace of a developed country.
They can, yeah.
Because a developed country is usually full.
Right, and they're not held back by any sort of regulations, perhaps, that we might have.
Not only that, you're absolutely right, there's lots of red tape in a developed country, but also labour is very expensive in a developed country compared to a third world country.
Right.
So China are building a new airport every week.
Uh-huh.
So don't you think all the business in the world is going to go to China eventually, when they've got so many airports that people can land and take off, at ease? Whereas if they want to come and do business in the UK, they say, well, I'm sorry, although Heathrow used to be the world's biggest airport and the world's busiest, that was 20 years ago, it's now one of the smallest international airports in the world because we couldn't be bothered to build a new runway.
It's still a very busy airport, but I mean, every time you go through Heathrow, and you know what this is like, I mean, if there's ever any problems like with fog, if there's ever any problems with baggage, everything gets backed up because there isn't really a moment of capacity. If all the planes don't take off when they're supposed to, it all gets backed up and it's all ridiculously, busy. And I don't think that's a good idea at all to actually expand it.
If anybody buys a home underneath the flight path into Heathrow Airport, right, then they have to accept that the noise of jets is going to be part of their life. And I couldn't care less anyway. I don't mind if I used to have the Concorde fly over my house. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, but it was only once a day. It wasn't constantly, was it?
Each evening.
I mean, if they flew a Concorde over your house once every 3 minutes, I'm sure you wouldn't like that very much.
Well, I wouldn't mind. It's such a beautiful plane. But honestly, I used to go out onto the old roof garden, see the big white bird come over, crack, the crack of the old sound barrier and all that kind of stuff. And
well, I don't think it was breaking the sound barrier flying over Surrey, was it?
No, it wasn't. No, it was coming into land at Heathrow.
Right.
And it looked magnificent. It's just such a shame we ever scrapped that aeroplane. It really took us backwards by 30 years in terms of
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the
technology.
skies above Richmond and Twickenham, right, there's a plane coming literally every sort of minute and a half.
Yeah, but that's because we're a busy...
Well, what's that going to look like? Well, what's that going to look like?
I don't care what it looks like.
When there's an extra runway?
I don't care what it looks like. My view is that it's in the greater interest of a country that's got 62 million people to knock down a few hundred homes and build another runway.
And where are you going to move all these people to?
Well, I don't care. Give them some money and tell them, it's a compulsory purchase order. Go and live somewhere else.
But where?
It's not a problem.
But where are they going to live?
Well, I don't care. There's plenty of other homes for sale in the southeast of England. Don't worry about that. They can go and live somewhere. And anyway, you've got to think about the country, not these individuals who are basically NIMBYs, not in my backyard, you know?
Well, it's not in your backyard either. What if they'd expanded Gatwick, which is not that far from you?
Yeah.
And then suddenly there was a lot more compulsory purchase orders going on, and loads more people moved into your neighbourhood.
I'd say yes.
Houses were being built.
Yes. Let's have expansion. Yes. Expansion is good for the economy, makes us all wealthier, makes us all richer, makes us all easier, makes it all easier for us to all have a better life, and I'd say definitely. I would not be a NIMBY.
I think you've got a very, very skewed view of this, because I think Gatwick actually would be a much better place to put an extra runway in.
It wouldn't, Mike. You don't understand.
I do understand.
No, you don't. You don't understand the appeal of a brand name as strong as Heathrow. When people leave America, you know, and they go down to JFK, they want to fly to London Heathrow. They do not want to fly to London Gatwick.
It doesn't really make any difference,
It does, because they feel that flying in a London Gatwick as opposed to London Heathrow, they're going to a second-rate airport. I mean, for instance, when I fly to America, and it's only happened to me once, and I was off a flight to Newark, I didn't go on it.
Why not?
I don't want to fly to Newark, New Jersey, which is, for the benefit of our listeners, which is Newark's third airport.
But it takes you exactly the same amount of time to get in from Newark as it does from JFK.
Care. I don't care. My trip did not sound anything like as glamorous going from London Heathrow to Newark, New Jersey.
But again, that's because you're a snob, though. You want to tell people, no, I'm flying to JFK.
No, it's not. Exactly. I like. In fact, even better, I want my luggage when I get to the hotel in Manhattan to have one of those things on it which says JFK. You know,
what difference does it make?
It makes a huge difference.
You'd have EWR if you went to Newark. I think that's the one you get for that.
No, I want JFK written on mine. That is, you know, one of the world's most recognisable airports, as is London Heathrow. I do not want to fly into Newark. Similarly, the Americans do not want to fly into somewhere called London Gatwick, LGW. They want LHR.
I don't think it makes any difference at all.
On those labels on their cases.
Well, if they
and they certainly don't want to go to blinking, you know, London Stansted. Where's that? You know, it's in East Anglia.
Yeah, it's not very near London, that's true.
London Luton. Who wants to go to Luton? Oh, well, sorry, I didn't mean that. I mean, Luton's
that's
a good
another
place.
area we can tick off on the list then of places you've slagged off.
No, Luton's a good place, but let's face it, Luton Airport is largely described as a tourist airport, that's all.
Well, that's right. That's why it doesn't have as much transatlantic traffic as it might have. But the thing is, what you haven't taken into account is the state of the roads, the state of the communications.
You just rebuild them all. Just rebuild them all.
You can't just rebuild everything.
Yes, you can. I mean, you know as well as I do, going to JFK, there's actually a motorway that branches off the main freeway there, and it only goes to JFK. Well, we need that for Heathrow here.
Well, we do have that for Heathrow, but the point is if you double the number of people coming into the place, then you'll never get into London in less than about 2 hours. It's a mad idea.
Well, you build a new train, an underground train, you build an overground
train.
Where's
all this money coming from?
Well, it's got to be provided by the growth that would arise from a bigger Heathrow airport. That's the way it's got to be. You don't understand economics, you see.
I think
you don't understand you've got to invest to get it back in a business sort of situation, not give it away to people.
I think the heat's got to you. It's definitely got to you.
It has not.
We've got lots more to talk about. We'll talk about Neil Lennon coming up in a moment. This is Talk Sport.
You might as well be walking on the sun.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes. Lots of tweets coming in at the Two Mikes. Here's one from Freddie who says, I thought Porky's new philosophy was to be more caring. People are not seeing that from you. And Bill says, it didn't take long for Porky's new Christian master slip. Let's turf people out of their homes.
What?
Porky, I don't care. It's extraordinary about face after you said you were going to be living by this new motto.
No, it's not. My new motto is those who are the first shall be the last, and those who are the last shall be the first.
Right.
Well, we all benefit if we get a more prosperous economy through having a bigger airport. So I would say that sticks exactly to that. Thing is, some people have got to make the sacrifices for the majority. The minority have to make the sacrifice for the majority. That is something, the essence of truthlessness for, millions of years.
Richard says this, knock down a few hundred houses, I don't care. What about look after your fellow beings, Porky? Definitely not man of the people.
No, I am. It's
so
just
nobody believes you're man of the people anymore.
Compassion can only go so far, and then compassion becomes foolishness and stupidity. That's all I tell you. Now, listen, I've been doing some research over the break.
So more research. I don't know how you find the time to do so much research.
I think I know whose party you're going to.
Well, so what if you know whose party I'm going to? You probably won't actually ever guess it because it may well be that you've jumped to the wrong conclusion.
No.
Why are you so obsessed with the party anyway?
I found a few people who are 50 this week.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Have you?
Yes. And one in particular, the name was flashing like a neon light. Okay?
Well, first of all, I didn't say that it was a 50th birthday party.
I think it probably is.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that.
I think it probably is. That's around about, your sort of age.
But why are you so obsessed with this whole party thing, just because you haven't been invited?
No, I didn't want to be invited, thank you.
Really?
But, I am determined to get to the bottom of why your subterfuge has been so relevant in this.
There's nothing to do with subterfuge.
Incident.
I just thought that I didn't want to bring it up before this, really, because I didn't want you to be embarrassed or I didn't want you to feel bad. But what I didn't expect you to do was kind of turn on me and accuse me of somehow letting you down to not get an invite for you, which you don't want anyway.
No, I don't want an invite, thank you.
Well, I'll tell you all about it when I see you on Monday night. How about that?
Really? Yeah. Do you think I'll be interested?
Well, I think you will be, because you're clearly extremely jealous.
Do you think our audience of millions of people are interested in what you get up to on a Saturday night, dressed up like a clown at somebody's party?
I think I'm going to look rather nice, actually.
Where you've been invited as an afterthought because they couldn't fill up
this is again one of your assumptions.
Couldn't fill up the guest list. Well, I bet you everybody else at that party. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? If you walked round to the whole of the room and the grounds where this party's taking place, say, "Oh, hi, Jack or Bill or Tom or Susan. When did your invitation arrive?" And they'll all say, "Oh, in January, actually."
Is that the kind of thing you would do?
Well, I might keep my ear to the ground to find out where I was on the pecking order.
Because that's important to you, right?
It's not important. It's just relevant information.
Going to quiz people and sort of grill them about exactly where on the list you were and how soon your invitation went out. Madness, absolute madness.
And also want to know what sort of invitation they got, because there are these sort of gilt-edged invitations, these rich people send out. Yeah.
Why are you assuming it's somebody rich?
Well, it's got to be to have a house in the country, did you say it is?
Well, they might be renting it. I mean, there could be any number of things that are going on that you know nothing about. So what I think you should do is stop obsessing about it.
I'm not obsessing about it at all.
Instead, what I think you should do is kind of bone up. If you're going to do any research at all, what you should do is research Wimbledon, because obviously that's the subject matter of the quiz tomorrow night.
Yes, indeed it is, and I have no fears about that. Now, talking about sporting issues, of course, I want to know whether Leicester fans think that Neil Lennon is the boy for them.
Well, he seems to be the number one target, according to the Express that I'm looking at.
Now, were you working in Glasgow when he was the manager of Celtic?
I was indeed.
My fears about Neil Lennon is that as a result of being the manager of Celtic in a city where I think there is more division between the two teams than any other city in the world that I know, but I mean, I've never lived in Madrid or anything like that. Buenos Aires is an awful lot. I've been to Buenos Aires. There's an awful lot of
they say that's one of the great games you should go to.
Oh, it is. I've been to the stadium there. I didn't see the game there, but I went to had a look around the stadium.
Boca Juniors and River Plate.
Yeah, right? That's right. And, of course, what's his name? Carlos Tevez is going back to Boca Juniors.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is. But anyway, look, what I'm saying is it could be as a result of the fact that Neil Lennon was the manager of Celtic for a number of years.
Quite a successful manager of Celtic.
Oh, yeah, quite successful. And both teams were in the Premier Division then, which might sound a stupid statement, but of course Rangers have since been relegated for various reasons. And
they haven't made it back up yet.
And haven't made it back up. And I remember the touchline face-to-faces, toe-to-toes with Ali McCoy, and they weren't pleasant.
No.
They weren't pleasant. They were very, very aggressive. But
that is partly the nature. That's partly the nature of the beast in that part of the world, though.
That is exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, will that now be ingrained in Neil Lennon, and will he bring that down to England with him and introduce a level of, aggression, a level of relationship on the touchline in this country, in the Premier League, which we currently don't have? And will it be a bad thing? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I personally don't think it would be. I think he'd be a great manager for Leicester because, of course, he spent a lot of time there.
Well, do you think he's a great manager, though?
Well, it's hard to know how great a manager
he is.
He certainly was very good for Celtic at that particular time.
Yeah, but you can't fail with Celtic. I'm afraid you just can't. You're either going to be the top team or the number 2 team, and it usually bobbles between the two each season.
Yeah, but don't forget he did manage to get them into the Champions League, and he did manage to get them to be, successful in the Champions League as well, getting out of their group and all the rest of it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you'd have to say that Neil Lennon was a very good manager for them, and I don't. He was quite a sort of, shall we say, an aggressive player, wasn't he? He had a reputation as being quite sort of combative as a player.
Yes,
and I think he'd be great. I'm sure Leicester fans would quite like to have him there. What a lot of people don't, I suppose, know yet is what his style of football would be like if he played the kind of football that Nigel Pearson played. Yes. I saw, by the way, yesterday that sources close to Nigel Pearson said that whole situation came completely out of the blue to him, and he had no idea that it was going to happen. Yeah,
took a phone call from a chap called Top.
Yeah,
and that is a nickname for the man whose name is very hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
It is Ayawat.
From Thailand.
Yeah, Ayawat Srivaddhanaprabhaba. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of this, but that's the name. It's spelt out with 18 letters, and it's very hard to pronounce. So he's known as Top. He's the son of the owner, Vishai, and he phoned Pearson and told him, look, we're parting ways.
Yeah.
And apparently it did come straight out of the blue.
And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, do you remember then there was a point at which there was a sort of mysterious sort of moment after one of the games where he was meant to have been fired and then reinstated because the son and the father that hadn't quite seen eye to eye. So, I mean, it came completely out of the blue to Nigel Pearson, but I wonder if we'll ever find out precisely what the reasoning was behind it. I don't know.
Well, the one explanation which I read about, I think it was yesterday, was that although the son was involved in the video that was published on YouTube, which was disgusting behaviour, everybody agrees with that. Yeah. Apparently, Nigel Pearson pointed out that his son didn't actually contribute to any verbal abuse. He just happened to be in the picture, you see what I mean? Right. And therefore, when the club arbitrarily sacked him without any reference to... without consulting Nigel Pearson at all, Pearson, made representations of the club saying that was terribly unfair.
So that was probably why they ended up falling out and not seeing eye to eye.
Well, it looks like it, doesn't it?
They wouldn't have seen it that way.
Yeah.
A couple more tweets for you here. Anthony has tweeted. He says, "Porky, you plank. The crackle of the sound of speed barrier being broken as Concord comes into land."
Yes.
I think he means the sound barrier rather than the speed barrier.
Yes.
Here's one from Tim who says...
I admitted that. I said, no, he didn't. I said, but the way you saw it swoop over my house, there was noise, believe me, because those engines are incredibly powerful, the most powerful airline engines in the world to propel a plane at, nearly 1,000 miles an hour, and they made a hell of a noise, believe me. Yeah.
Here's one from Tim who says, "I was a governor at West Drayton Primary when this new runway was spoken of in 2007, and Heathrow is ridiculous. I met BA's chief executive from Ireland, and he was very nice, but the new runway, he said, would be a massive mistake. Apart from anything else, QPR would not be happy," he says, because of all the planes flying over. They've been complaining about the planes at Wimbledon as well, because they're coming in so thick and fast.
Yeah, but hang on, haven't they got a worse problem at Flushing Meadow in
Well, they
in
have,
New York?
because they've got JFK and they've got LaGuardia there
exactly,
as well.
Yeah, the planes come over about every 20 seconds, and you can hear them even when you're watching it on TV.
Right.
So that's not an answer or an excuse.
So have you been watching much of Wimbledon to bone up on the quiz subject of this week?
No, but I don't need to. I've been because I've been watching Wimbledon for 50 years, haven't I? So it's all in my head.
Is it?
It's all in my head.
So you didn't watch much. You see that your
Pancho Gonzalez. Can you remember him?
No, I do. That was the game I was telling you about the other night. That I used to, when we used to go as kids and watch late into the night.
Yeah.
But the boy Brody that we were talking about the other day, so he went out yesterday.
I mean, didn't just go out. He was booted out. It was 6-1, 6-1, wasn't it?
And you were being quite sort of
6-1,
fulsome in your
6-1,
praise
6-4,
of him the other day, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was, yeah. But
it's another Porky jinx situation.
No, and the relationship between him and his father has not improved, unfortunately.
No, it hasn't, no. Well, it wasn't going to over one game, was it?
No, I suppose. Well, if we'd all have wanted him to win and then seen, what happened after that, really, I suppose, and how he could have improved it. But anyway, there you go.
Well, I'm going to recommend to you that you watch a bit of the Wimbledon coverage, later on today, so that when you come in the evening, you'll have at least seen what happened that day. Because, I mean, if I ask you a question about something that's happened at Wimbledon that day, you can't say that's an unfair question.
No, I can. That's not part of the quiz.
Why not?
Because you're going to quiz me on Wimbledon, the history of the competition over, all the years it's been going.
So it doesn't include anything that's happened on this particular Wimbledon?
Well, nothing big can happen tomorrow because there's no big games. I mean, I know Andy Murray's playing, but I mean, he's going to win anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Right, so if there's an incident, though, and you haven't seen it, or you're not sort of, aware of it,
you're
going to complain that I've somehow, gerrymandered the questions, which I don't even write.
No, I'm not going to claim that at all. I'll take on all comers when it comes to questions. I have locked in my head 50 years of viewing Wimbledon since the age of 10, probably. Right. And, and I'm very, very confident about it. However, what I do not want to see in the questions are the sort of trick questions about... I mean, for instance...
I'm not responsible for the questions.
Well, I think you are. I think you have an influence on them, and I don't believe that you're not responsible.
They get sent in on a Thursday evening. I look at them for the first time just before I'm about to ask you them.
The equivalent of a bum question in the Wimbledon quiz would be, which Wimbledon champion later played doubles with the dead Fred Perry 2 years ago?
Yeah.
That would be the equivalent.
Well, that wouldn't be the case,
because you gave me a question about Elvis Presley duetting with a singer 30 years after he died.
Yeah.
And so a dead man duetting with a live singer, that's the equivalent of Bjorn Borg playing doubles with Fred Perry 30 years after Fred Perry died. It's an absolute scandal.
But you didn't know when he was born either, or the date that he got married.
Of course
so
I did.
In the end, it wouldn't have mattered.
Of course I did.
Anyway, look at the time. We're almost out of it because it's time for Porky Visions coming up next on Talk Sport. Now, that music can only mean one thing. It is that time of the week when Mr. Parry puts on his TV reviewer's hat and tells us what the big shows are to watch, what the shows are not to watch, and sometimes a little surprise thrown in from the past, vintage television. I have to say, Mr. Parry, that there's been some criticism over the last couple of weeks.
Why?
That you might not quite have been watching as much TV as a TV reviewer should.
Why? Who said that?
Well, some people on Twitter have been saying, maybe he should watch a bit more TV before he starts talking about some of the shows. I know how busy you are, having just explained how you spend like 6 hours trying to book a railway ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not surprising you've got no time to watch TV.
Well, that's
but
right.
tell us what you've been watching this week.
Right, OK. I saw the John Bishop show on Saturday night. It was brilliant. He's brilliant, John Bishop. I met him at a job I was doing at the BBC a few weeks ago, and he was in great shape.
Was he?
In great form. He's a great guy. And, in fact, we nearly had a duet together on the piano, which is owned by Sir Elton John.
Oh, right, OK.
Which he donated to the BBC and put in the foyer of BBC Radio 2.
And was he there kind of doing a show or something like that?
Yeah, he was doing some sort of a show, and I was there, and of course...
You didn't think of inviting you on then?
Well, I can't really disclose what sort of conversations I was having with John, of course, because he is one of the country's leading comedians now, and he's got this stand-up show. It's called The John Bishop Show, OK? Yeah. It's described as an evening of entertainment, and this particular one that was on last Saturday was at the Hackney Empire Theatre in London. So I looked at it, and I thought, that could be a venue that the old MG and I might do one of these days, you know what I mean?
So is it just him kind of standing
just him standing there, telling great jokes, and not just great jokes, but, I mean, doing really what I specialise in, telling the story.
Monopolising the show?
No, you fool! But telling the audience about life as it unfolds, in a nitty gritty, bitty sort of way, and
endearingly kind of.
Yes, endearingly humorous and
telling stories
and observations on life and people's excesses and sometimes people's non-excesses and people's foibles and fears.
Right.
And
so is it live then, or is it been recorded another time, I suppose, has it?
Yeah, it's been recorded.
Yeah,
been recorded.
And it doesn't have guests? Does he? Because I've seen Michael McIntyre doing a similar show.
Yeah, there were a couple of guests.
But he tends to sort of bring people on as well.
There were a couple of guests. And that was good. That was great. Now, I'll tell you what was on at the same time.
Right.
No, it wasn't at the same time. It was on the same night, I think. Maybe I skyboxed it and had a look later. Casualty.
Oh, yeah.
Now, people, does people still watch Casualty?
Well, I do.
Because there's one great character in Casualty, and that is Charlie, OK? And Charlie's one of life's losers.
Is he?
Oh, yeah. I've got so much empathy for him. He is a life loser.
You've got empathy for him?
Yeah.
I thought you had no empathy for losers.
Have I not told you about my new mantra in life?
Well, you have.
My new mantra in life is this, OK? Those who are first shall be the last, and those who are last shall be the first, OK? And
well,
I think
you said
Charlie,
that before, but then you said you didn't care if people had their houses knocked down to build a new runway.
I think Charlie falls into this category, OK? I'll tell you what's happened to Charlie over the years. Done a bit of research on him, OK?
Right.
He got shot in the chest, by a mad patient, right? Then he was nearly drowned when he went off a bender.
What is he, a paramedic or something?
He's a nurse.
OK.
In fact, I think he's kind of head access nurse or something like that. Head admissions nurse or something.
In the A&E.
Yeah, in the A&E, that's right, yeah. But he'll stick his nose in where it's not wanted. He's one of these kind of... he's a barrack room politician, you know what I mean? He's
Casualty's been on for years as well, hasn't it?
It's been on for years and years, and he's aged in it. Now, the reason I like Charlie is because the first time we ever came across him, he was, in fact, a minor hitman in the gang of... the Long Good Friday?
Yes.
He was a minor hitman in the gang...
Oh, was he?
Run by Bob.
Right.
Bob
Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins.
When you say Bob and nod your head,
yes.
I have no idea what you mean.
Well, you knew what I meant because I said Long Good Friday.
But when you nod your head, I presume you mean me to fill out the empty name.
No. I'm just encouraging you to get involved in the conversation if you wish.
Thank you very much.
And if you remember, he went to see Bob Hoskins on Bob Hoskins' boat moored on the Thames.
Right.
And when he got on board, Bob Hoskins found that this guy had been treacherous, so he smashed a whiskey bottle, jammed it in his throat and killed him.
Yes.
And wrapped him in the carpet.
And that was the end of him.
And two other henchmen came round, took him away and buried him somewhere, and Bob Hoskins went in the shower.
Right.
But I think one
So
mistake...
he's now turned up on Casualty?
Yeah, exactly. But I think one mistake, his real name, by the way, and I've never forgotten it because it's the same name as a terrific racing pundit who was a friend of the station for years and years. Go on, tell me.
Who?
Excuse me, go on. Who was the great racing pundit?
you're talking about?
Tomo, what's his name?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Derek Thompson.
Derek Thompson, yeah.
That's the same name as Charlie in Casualty. How about that? What a terrific coincidence.
How extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, have you watched Casualty for many years?
Oh,
for a long
20
time?
years probably.
Because I used to watch it when it was sort of on when my older kids were quite young, because I used to quite like it.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it for probably,
well,
I don't know, 18 years.
You're not a TV reviewer, mate, and I am. You've got to keep in touch with these things, OK? So, and the other thing, Charlie...
So what happened in the show that you watched then? What happened to
hang on. In the Long Good Friday, Charlie propositioned Helen Mirren in the lift as well.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about Long Good Friday.
No, well, it's a great film.
He's already been killed off.
Yeah, he's been killed off, yeah. Right, so what happens in Casualty is, first of all, he got shot by a mad patient. Then he nearly drowned, right? Hang on.
Is this all in the same episode?
Yeah, no, this is over the years. Then he nearly drowned when he went on a bender because he found the pressure working on top of him, fell in a canal. Then he suffered a heart attack. Then he had a pulmonary embolism, right?
Goodness me.
That's a blood clot in the back of your head.
Right.
In fact, a mate of mine died from that. He came out of the shower, he was standing in the kitchen with his girlfriend who was cooking the spaghetti bolognese, and he had a large glass of whiskey in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and he said, "How's the spaghetti going?" When she turned around to tell him, he was dead.
Yeah.
He fell backwards in the kitchen on the floor.
Shocking.
Yeah, it was shocking, absolutely, yeah. So anyway... what was I talking about?
You're talking about Casualty.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So, anyway, he then, in another episode, lost his job because he started beating up a patient. A patient got a bit mouthy, and started complaining about lack of treatment and all that. So Charlie, got stuck in, gave him one. And
he sounds like a fairly unsavoury character.
Well, he could be, yeah.
Which is probably why you've got some sympathy for him.
Yeah, exactly. Rather surprisingly, the National Health Service, who never seem to sack anybody, and they've got 1 million people working for them. Right. In fact, they're the biggest employer in the world after the
Red Army.
The Chinese Red Army and the Indian Railway Service, okay? Biggest employer in the world. Just imagine what that bill costs to employ those people. And I reckon about 1/3 of the National Health Service people who are not productive on the front line, not nurses and doctors.
You mean all the managers?
I mean all the managers, all the pen pushers.
Well, this is a fictional TV drama, though, isn't it?
All the people who devise all these systems so that when you're desperately ill, you're more worried about paying £18 to park your car for a day down in the car park near the hospital than you are in whether you're going to get any treatment to save you from dying, which is what hospitals are for, to try and save you from dying. Hospitals are not.
Why are you shouting?
Well, because I get outraged by hospitals trying to raise money from the sick and the dying. £18 a day to park your car. If your neighbours turn up, that costs another 18 quid. And if it runs out, you've got to run downstairs. Instead of being at the bedside of the sick and the ill, you've got to be filling machines full of coins. Now then,
so what happens at the end of Casualty then?
Well, hang on.
They all run out to the car park to feed the winter.
No, I'm getting to that. Anyway, so he gets reinstated after beating up a patient. It was called a brawl, actually, not beating up. And then he helped a friend to commit suicide because Charlie's a bit of a revolutionary, believes in sending people to Dignitas clinics and all that.
Okay.
So he helps his mate to commit suicide. His wife leaves him.
It's a very busy episode, this, isn't it?
No, it wasn't one episode. This is the history of Charlie, which I researched in order to be able to tell you about the Casualty programme.
Right.
He's also got a son who's a heroin addict, so he's one of life's losers, Nothing seems to work out for him. But anyway, in this particular episode...
what happens to him in this particular episode,
I'm just trying to read my notes here. He's... Well, he goes about his business and sorts out a few problems. It wasn't an extraordinary episode, but it was an episode of Casualty.
Okay, so you enjoyed that then?
Yeah, it was great,
Will you be watching any more of them?
I might watch one next week.
Okay.
There was another great programme, actually. I forgot what it was called, but it was really riveting.
Was it?
And it was about a woman who's a terrorist. And, it's called Odyssey. And, I'll tell you the one was Anna Friel.
Anna Friel, I like Anna Friel, yeah.
Anna Friel was in EastEnders. Wasn't she famous for the first woman to indulge in a lesbian kiss on television?
She was, I think,
of all time. Well, she was in one called Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
And she's like a rebel sort of... she's a kind of undercover agent.
Okay.
People think that she's a terrorist, but she's not, I don't think. I don't think she is. But, I mean...
You don't think she is?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's
is it set in this country?
No, it's set in the Middle East, and there's a big government cover-up, OK? A shady operation. There's an ex-US attorney involved who, who's a sort of do-gooder and all that kind of stuff. But, what's the problem?
I'm not getting the gist of any of this,
problem?
Really.
Anna Friel.
Yeah.
Well, it's a US thriller, and she's English, so she didn't actually fit in all that well, to be honest. But,
she's been living over there for a while.
Yeah, that's right. And she's with an isolated military team who stumble upon, a big secret. It unfolds...
What is your note to reading?
No, well, sort of, yeah.
Is that what you write down?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Just tell me that again.
And I tell you what, the whole programme, this is why it's called Odyssey, right? The whole plot was inspired by the fantastic ancient Greek story, Homer's Odyssey.
The fantastic ancient Greek story. Homer's Odyssey.
Yeah, Homer's Odyssey was that magnificent Greek manuscript written by Homer.
I didn't know that was about terrorists.
No, it wasn't. It was about a lesson in life, about subterfuge, treachery.
Was it?
How people let you down, all that kind of stuff, and it's all based on that. So I thought it was a brilliant analogy to write this and get Anna Friel looking like a terrorist, explaining the ancient Greek Homer's Odyssey manuscript, which is what it's all about.
Excellent.
I don't know why you're laughing.
So you'd recommend that then?
You asked me to get more specific about the TV review, and I have done. I've told you loads of detail.
I think you have. I think
loads of detail, okay?
You've put an awful lot of detail
Thank you.
into that.
I watched Coronation Street, of course, because I always watch that.
Fires.
But it's getting really silly, to be honest. You get a bit daft, Coronation Street. Honestly, I'm not sure what it's all about. You know, people running allotments and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, there you go. So there you go. That's the TV breakdown for this week. I hope all of you whingers and moaners who were sending messages to old MG last week that you didn't think my what do you call this, the TV review was detailed enough. Well, you got plenty of detailed information now, so stick that in your pipe and smoke it, people, okay?
He's looking for the most unpopular TV reviewer of the year. There'll be another Porky Vision coming up next week, of course. Definitely an improvement on the last one. But I think abusing the listeners at the end of it is possibly not the best idea.
I didn't abuse.
Never mind.
I don't abuse the listeners.
We've got lots more to do. We are the two mics. This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out, of course, a little bit later on, probably about 5 hours from now or so. And, of course, as we've mentioned, the Porky quiz on the show tomorrow is going to be all about Wimbledon.
Hey, by the way, Mate, I forgot to tell you, in the TV review, I saw that trainer in the racehorse.
The finished now,
No, don't worry about that. The trainer in the racehorse.
I'm not worried about it.
You remember that one? It was about Henry Cecil and the racehorse, Frankel.
Oh, yeah.
It was fantastic.
Was it?
It was the best programme I saw last week.
And you saw that as well?
Yeah, I forgot to put it in the TV review, but it was a great programme. And it was very touching, very moving. And, I met Henry Cecil a few times with Derek Thompson, funnily enough, because, what a circle to put my TV review in.
Yes, of course.
The guy from Casualty was named Derek Thompson.
Yeah.
Derek Thompson's the same name as my mate, the racing pundit, Derek Thompson.
Yeah.
Derek Thompson knows Henry Cecil.
Right.
Took me to...
almost baffling that you forgot to mention it, really.
It's amazing, really. It must have overwhelmed me. Derek Thompson took me to his stables in Newmarket. I met Henry Cecil. It's amazing.
Did you meet Frankel as well?
No, never met Frankel, no.
He was busy.
Then Henry and Cecil, we can find a connection there. Do you know any Cecils?
Cecil, no. Cecil Parkinson, I remember.
Cecil,
but that wasn't really a friend of mine.
I was in. I think I was in Blackpool when he had to admit that he was having
the father of Sarah Keyes' child.
An affair with his wife. And do we know any Henrys? Henry
VIII.
Henry VIII. Yeah, Henry. I don't know.
What are you doing now? Are you playing some kind of word association?
No. I'm thinking of Henry Winter, who's leaving the Telegraph soon to go to the Times.
It's going to be winter, after autumn.
It certainly is. Yeah,
we could do this all night.
That's word association. Anyway, look, I thought I'd tell you about the fact that I'm so delighted that Mr. Gold, David Gold, is coming in on the breakfast show tomorrow.
Yes,
because of course West Ham are playing. They're actually starting their season, aren't they? Playing this team from Andorra, and that's at home. They've got a full house.
Yeah, you were telling me that. Yeah.
But Mr. Gold is a remarkable man. I don't know if you've ever sort of listened to him talk about his life.
I have. Well, he talks to TalkSport on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, but I'm talking about not just talking about football, on a broader. I like to approach subjects, Mike, on a broader base.
I know that.
Not just at the face value.
Yeah.
You don't take things at face value. Where I come from, I wouldn't have got to where I am today if I'd have just taken things at face value. I look at the broader picture.
Where do you think you've got to today, then?
Well,
if you were to sort of sum it all up.
Yes, okay. I think if you have the respect of the world, then basically you've achieved something.
Is that what you think you have?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, let me read you this from Ben.
Mm-hmm.
It says 20 minutes of casualty gibberish to tell us Charlie went about his day and sorted out a few problems. Another quality Porky Vision.
Thank you.
So you've got one fan there.
That's great. Well done. Excellent. Good. Now, I've got to say about Mr. Gold is the most fascinating story is that if you come out of the tube station, which
tube station?
Is it Upton Gate or is it West Ham? No, it's West Ham.
West Ham or Upton Park.
Upton Park.
Sorry, I don't think there is an Upton Gate.
No, Upton Park.
Yeah.
No, it is West Ham.
Okay.
So you come out and you turn right and you walk down the road. And on the right, there's a couple of pubs and there's a shopping centre where on a Saturday they have a market, okay? Right. And on the left, there's a lot of stores where they're selling scarves and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then as the road gets closer to the bowling ground, on your right, there's a load of little terraced houses and a couple of shops. Now, Mr. Gold was brought up in one of the flats above one of those shops.
Was he?
as a child.
Right.
Poverty-stricken. Family didn't have any money. Sometimes cold, like you and I have said, no heating in the house and all that.
Yeah.
Sometimes went to bed hungry.
Yeah.
And to think that he now owns the football ground immediately across the road, or co-owns it anyway, is a remarkable story.
It is.
Remarkable story.
Is. But, I mean, you know, there's not, I suppose, so many people who have managed to get from that rags to riches situation. But, I mean, there's a few of them, and they're very determined people, aren't they?
Very determined people. Also, I was going around the M25 not so long ago when, you know, I noticed in the middle lane a roller, because you can't miss a roller.
They're very big now, aren't they?
Big, distinctive, and I think it was gold, but I stand to be corrected, because I think Mr. Gold's got one, and so has the other co-owner of the West Ham, Mr. Sullivan. Yeah, David Sullivan.
Right.
But anyway, as I got closer and closer, and I think it was gold, he might have more than one, I don't know, I realised whose car it was, because the number plate said gold, G-O-L-D.
And is that his car?
Well, he wasn't driving it, because obviously as I passed, I looked, and another chap was driving it, who I assume might have been his chauffeur or something. But I was trying to work out how you can get a number plate, G-O-L-D. So it must have been
you buy it, don't you?
No, but I mean, you can't have it. In America, you can have any number plate you want.
Sure.
If you're J.R. Ewing, you can have Ewing 1.
Right.
But you can't in this country. So it must have been, for instance, something like G-O-1. You know, see what I mean? To make up the word gold.
Yeah, but most people who have got specialised number plates have, you know, they've been in existence for a long time. They buy them.
Yeah.
Because in the olden days, you know, number plates didn't have letters on them that depicted the year, did they? They just had kind of, you know, random letters on them.
The first guy to cash in on that and make it his own was Jimmy Tarbuck, who bought COM1C.
Right.
And he's still got it.
Comic.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, what I was going to say
I'm surprised you haven't got a specialised number plate. You're the kind of guy that would have one.
I have.
Well, why haven't you got it on the car?
Because I think it would be too dangerous.
Too dangerous?
Yes.
Why?
It spells Everton.
Does it?
Yes.
Well, that's not a specialised number plate for you, though, is it?
No, but if I drove that car and I went to an away game, I fear that I might get bricked.
Yes, that's
and
possible.
I don't want to get bricked.
And did you pay a lot of money for that?
I think I paid about... Well, I don't really want to say, because then you always mock me and say you're not the man of the people and all this kind of stuff.
You paid quite a lot of money for it, then.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
And it's...
But if you're not going to put it on your car, what's the point of having it?
Well, I will, you know, when my retirement day arrives and I decide to get a car befitting my status.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
which would be what?
Well, for instance...
The Vauxhall Viva, the new one that's just come out.
No, although I'd love the idea of a Vauxhall Viva, just to say, here we go, you know...
The world has come full circle.
Yeah, exactly. 30 years on, you know, back to the old Vauxhall Viva, it'd be brilliant. No, car befitting my status would be something like an XJ Jaguar,
right?
Maybe, or you know.
Well, maybe you shouldn't wait too long, because if you wait too long, when you come to the age where you're retiring, you won't be able to drive it as well as you can now.
Or I might die before.
Or you might die.
Before that day comes around. That's something else I've thought of as well. But anyway, the point is.
Well, how do you think Everton came to be on a number plate then? How did you work that one out?
Well, I can't tell you exactly, because I don't want to give away the number plate, but it involves an E and a V.
Okay.
It involves the number 7.
Yeah.
And it involves like 11 at the end. And
so it doesn't actually say Everton at all, unless you have it specially made up.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's what I've done.
Okay.
That's what I've done. Yeah. And by the way, you have to pay 150 quid a year to keep that plate, otherwise it reverts back to DVLC.
Right.
See what I mean?
Or DVLA.
DVLA.
Right.
Although I bought it, it's a strange old rule. You'd think, well, that's yours now; it's in your possession. But if you don't put it on a car, then you are only hiring the plate, if you see what I mean, even though you have it in your possession.
Right.
And you have to pay. In fact, you know, when Rooney was at Everton, I've got a Rooney plate.
Have you?
I've got a Rooney plate.
How many plates have you got?
About 4.
All of which that you bought?
Yes.
None of which are on a car?
No.
How bizarre.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
The Rooney plate, I can tell you, is R999, but with the big circle of the 9 made big. And
Isn't there some rule about what you can do with those numbers? You can't actually make them look like a 0.
Well, you can until you get stopped. No, I've never been stopped with it.
Well, you can until you get stopped?
Yes, that's right.
But that doesn't mean it's allowed.
No, it's not allowed, I don't think, no. But it's R999, so that's, but with a big, you know, circle of the 9, see what I mean?
Yeah.
And just a little bit at the bottom of the 9, NEY.
Right. So that's not Rooney at all, is it?
It's Rooney, isn't it? 'Cause there's 3 O's in the middle, you see what I mean?
There aren't 3 O's, it's 3 9s.
Yeah, but they look like O's, honestly.
But if you change them into O's, then you get pulled over and you get fined.
Well,
that's my point.
I haven't so far.
Why don't you just get the number plates made up?
I used to have that on my green Jag, which was an XJ Jag.
So did people throw bricks at that?
Well, no, because you see, the thing is, They
didn't think you were Wayne Rooney, did they?
No, they didn't think I was Wayne Rooney. Obviously, they didn't. But I saw it advertised, and somebody rang me up and said, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Oh, why not?" And
how much did you pay for that one?
Quite a lot of money,
really?
Because he was then Boy Wonder.
Right.
It was after. I tell you what, it was after I'd actually been to cover the Portugal
so these
European Championships.
Are quite valuable. Where do you keep them? You keep them in a locked room.
Well, you don't actually have to have a plate. You just have the ownership of it. It doesn't have to be in a plate form.
Right. So you haven't got the plate.
Well, I have, yeah, but I don't want to admit
that.
It's
very bizarre,
isn't it? In case people sort of try and steal them.
Well, they won't be able to break in through that prison door.
No. Well, it's not a prison door. It's a decorative ironwork door.
I see.
But anyway,
Pete says, Porky, you numpty, West Ham Underground station is nowhere near the football ground.
Well, which one is it then?
Well, it must be a different. It must be a different station, doesn't it?
Might be Upton Park.
Must be Upton Park.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. I know there's an East Ham station in West. I can never remember, but all I do is you just follow all the West Ham fans with their scars. Where they get off, I get off.
Right.
It's as simple as that. So I don't need to look at what station I'm getting on or off at. I just know where it is.
Well, you need to be on the right line, though.
Oh well, I know where that is. It's the red line. The middle. What's that?
Central.
Central.
It's not on the central line.
I think it is.
No, it's on the district, isn't it?
No,
isn't it on the district line to Upminster.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Line? Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I suppose it could be. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, definitely.
When was the last time you were there?
This season.
Right. Hospitality?
Well, not hospitality. I mean, I've got a mate there who's got a box, and I went there twice. Went once with Mr. Brazil when we missed 17 goals because we left early.
That was quite a record.
Yeah, it was a complete record.
Yeah.
There was a bus strike. We had a car ordered downstairs. 10 minutes to go. The car said, "Look, you've got to come now or go. We're under so much demand. There's no buses." We went. And they, the game was at 1-0. It ended up 2-2, and there were 15 penalties.
Yeah.
Unbelievable,
extraordinary.
There we go.
Well, so anyway, the rest of your day, I'm presuming you're going to go get some sleep so that you can take on the arduous nature of this 3-hour show later with a bit more alacrity. Right?
I am feeling sleep deprivation. I have to say at the moment.
I think you're going to have to find some kind of way of sleeping during this very, very hot weather.
Yes.
Why don't you buy a fan? How about that?
I've got a fan.
You've got a fan?
I've got a fan, but a fan's not very good. Do you know why?
Why?
Although it provides cool air, it also provides a noise, and your brain can't handle the noise.
Right.
Seriously.
How about an air conditioning unit like the one you suggested to that guy?
I thought about that, but then you haul that up into your penthouse, right?
Well, you get somebody to deliver it, surely.
Yeah, you do, yeah, but you only use it for like 5 days a year, probably, and then it's a piece of junk stuck in the corner of a room, isn't it?
But you've got loads of pieces of junk stuck in cupboards that you don't use. You've got like 4 kettles, you've got about 5 microwaves.
Yeah, but they're all useful. They're useful.
Well, not if you're not using them, they're not.
Yeah, if a kettle suddenly breaks down, I know I've got a refill kettle in the wardrobe,
right.
So no problem.
Well, how about putting earphones in and putting a fan on? I think that might be the answer.
No, I couldn't sleep with earphones. I could never do that. I can't sleep on aeroplanes for that very reason. I don't like to sleep on aeroplanes. If there's loads of free booze floating around, I prefer to drink on aeroplanes.
Well, maybe you should just drink yourself into like a stupor and pass out. Maybe that would be the way.
No, I don't do that. That's your trick on a Saturday night. Red, white, in that order, I think.
You've now forgotten the order. You've actually forgotten, haven't you?
Hang on. It's definitely red, white, rosé, and whiskey. That's it. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you've managed to remember that.
Sorry?
I think it's probably time for a lie down.
I think it is. Yeah,
in a dark room.
Yeah, I do as well. Yeah.
But don't forget to do some.
Cheer everybody and going for a lie down in a dark room with a wet flannel on my head.
And you're going to do some research when you wake up on Wimbledon because that'll be the subject matter of the quiz.
Yeah.
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.
I either have sandwiches, or I have quiche,
right?
Or I have
quiche.
What are you laughing at?
Quiche.
Yeah.
What sort of quiche do you have?
I like quiche Lorraine.
Quiche Lorraine.
Yeah.
That you buy presumably ready-made.
Well, I don't make it, do I, you idiot?
Well, you could do. Some people do.
Don't be ridiculous. You'd have to be a cordon bleu chef to make quiche Lorraine. And anyway, it's full of eggs, and I don't like eggs.
Well, why do you eat it then?
Well, I eat it with things like ham and tomato. I'm not into that, I'm sorry, I'd probably get mugged or something by somebody in a library, so I've decided not to. I've been researching the internet all day to find out what they are. Like, for instance, taking the